right, we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Kent County Board of Commissioners meeting for Thursday, June 24th. We are hopefully in our last hybrid format for the year. We have some commissioners joining us virtually. We have members of the public obviously joining us virtually as well. So with that, I will call the meeting to order. Mr. Clerk Assistant, will you please call the roll?
Good morning. I'll call the attendance roll call. If you are joining us remotely, please state your location as well. Commissioner Green.
Here.
Commissioner Antor.
Here, Sparta Township.
Morgan.
Here, Onekama, Michigan.
Jones.
Here.
Vice Chair Steck.
Here.
Ponstein. Here. Burl.
Here.
Coleman. Here. Breevy.
Here.
Teal.
Here.
Sparks. McLeod.
Here.
Hennessy.
Here.
LeGrand.
Here.
Bukowski. Commissioner Bukowski. Womack.
Here.
Wooden.
Here.
Skaggs.
Here.
Chair Bolter. Here. Madam Chair, you have a quorum. You have 18 present.
Thank you. We are on item 3 of the agenda in rotation.
Where'd you go?
Well, I'm here to do the invocation today and just want to say that unity is the word I would just love everybody to not only carry today, but through their hearts throughout this through your lifetime, not only as dealing with commissioners. As I've watched some of our candidates speak, something came up that talked about the pandemic and how great Kent County did during this pandemic. And that's because of every one of our colleagues here, every commissioner that's here did their part, all of our staff did their part. Everybody did what they could to the best of their ability. But I hope that unity that brought us together, this crisis, is something that just continues on even after the pandemic, because if we had not pulled together and unified, so many small businesses would have been lost, so many buildings would have been boarded up, so many more lives would have been lost. So giving that credit to the entire Kent County family, just saying after this pandemic, I hope we continue that unity, because it's always a crisis, even if it's only one person dying, even if it's only one kid that's missing his education because he didn't have the parents that were there for him. And as a village, we didn't wrap our arms around that child and help him fulfill his dreams. So just remember, it's always a crisis. If it's not a national crisis, statewide crisis, county crisis, or city crisis, there's a crisis for a child somewhere, and they're depending on our unity. Thank you, and I ask you to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Womack. Want to remind those joining us virtually to please mute your line if you would be so kind. And we are on to item 5 of our agenda, public comment related to an agenda item. Do we have any public comment today? Hi. Good morning. Dante, could you give us your name and address for the record?
Absolutely. Good morning. Buenos días a todos. My name is Dante Villarreal. I am a resident of Byron Center, Michigan, 870 92nd Street in Byron Center. I'm also the Vice President for Business and Talent Development at your Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce. Today, I just want to share how I feel very fortunate to have been a part of the selection process for this position, very important position. I do want to share that during my tenure at Grand Valley State University, I was one of the first in and many inclusion advocates as we did searches, and I probably participated in over 50 different searches for the university. And I share that because today I want you all to know that this process was probably one of the strongest processes, if not the strongest, selection processes, incorporating equitable practices and intentionality, looking at the right person for this right seat. I'm very pleased with the results. I'm very pleased with the 3 candidates that we put forth for your consideration this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dante. Anyone else for public comment today? Do we have anyone in the email inbox? All right. Thank you so much. We are on to item 6 of our agenda, our special order of business, and we'll begin our Kent County Controller Administrator candidate interviews. Charlie, do you want to bring in the first candidate? Oh, I'm sorry. You're, yes, please. Charlie, could you come up? I'm just so excited to get right into it that,
Good morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Ingersoll with Korn Ferry. I'm a senior client partner in the nonprofit and public sector practice. We were retained in January of 2020, and we met with and surveyed 230 stakeholders. That included all of you, community leaders, senior officials, and others. We targeted regional, national, and local administrators. We looked at nonprofit and business leaders. We developed a list of about 150 sources and potential candidates to call, and we reached about 100 individuals. We phone screened 47 individuals. We had 32 applicants, and we also advertised in a diverse group of organizations, to make sure we broaden the pool. The select committee selected 5 individuals to interview, and they did that on June 10th. After that, 2 candidates did withdraw. One took another job in the process, and one decided I think their employer maybe gave them a reason to stay where they were. And then I wanted to sort of go over a little bit with you. You all were, at the beginning of this search, were asked to fill out a link to create a unique client profile for this position. And 11 of you filled it out. And I just thought it would be helpful to have you know what the 10 key competencies are that you as a group decided were the most important. There were 30 to pick from, but the 10 that were most important were strategic mindset, communications effectively, instill trust, collaborate, decision quality, balance stakeholders, build effective teams, courage, drive results, and manage conflict. So those are the things. I want to tell you that we did sort of then put the candidates through our assessment, and our staff psychologists did deem that they all were qualified for the position, that they all were a fit. We all of us, if we take a assessment like this, we have strengths and we have weaknesses, and but there was no anybody was not outside of the norm for the position. So today, as we get started, I guess speaking for Korn Ferry, I would say you have 3 qualified candidates, 3 that come with very different styles, very different backgrounds, and and they come with, some come with more experience, some come with less experience, some come with innovation, lots of come with passion, and I think your job, of course, this is the hard work that you all have to do, is what's right for Kent County and what's the right leader for you next. But we feel that you do have 3 qualified candidates.
does anyone have any questions for Charlie? Just about the process, or kind of how we, during the course of our meetings, how they screened them? Any questions or comments while we have him here?
Well, I certainly will be here afterwards if you.
Yep. Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. So those joining us virtually, we're taking a couple minutes to go get one of the candidates. Good morning.
Good morning.
Kelfani, just go ahead and introduce yourself, give us your introduction presentation, and then we'll just kind of go through questions, kind of like we did during the second round interviews yesterday morning.
All right, well, good morning all. Again, Kelfani Stevens here, Economic Development Director currently at the City of Flint. Just want to thank you all for your time, for inviting me out here. And you already have my resume in front of you. We've been through a couple of rounds of interviews, so I'd just like to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit more. Who am I? I'm a seasoned administrator. I've managed directly a $12 million budget as part of a financial team, a $70 million budget. I'm a board chair that's worked with a $40 million budget, tackled pension reform, government reporting. My name is the name on the signature line for all of the documents that go to the federal government. I have brought change. At the City of Pontiac, I was the director of the Rise of the Phoenix program, where I partnered with building owners, convinced them to give free rent to change the perception, garnered national attention. I brought in the NSP2 program, or directed those funds to say, hey, let's not just spread them around the county like peanut butter, put them in one place to create lasting change that you can still see today in the downtown scape of that city. In Clayton County, Georgia, I partnered with the SBA and with the local bank to create a loan program that again brought national attention to that county and millions of dollars of new investment. In Flint, I was able to stop the recapture of federal funds so that we could continue to use them. I've worked on process improvement and customer service throughout my career. Companies such as HeroTech, Cummins, Alk Construction, and Goyette will all attest to the changes that I made in different communities that allowed them to be able to move forward after having been stuck in the mire of government processes and bureaucratic tape. I've built and managed teams. In Clayton County, I was the number one employee, or employee number one, ground zero, and I built a team that, again, after only 18 months, was able to garner more than $50 million of new investment and over 500 jobs that were paying above the county average. In the City of Pontiac, I instituted cross training that was able to then, in a unionized environment nonetheless, that was able to reduce staff and actually create a better workforce environment for the staff that was there. With the Flint DDA, in just a short 3-month period, I was able to work with them to not only turn around their finances from being over $400,000 short to being able to make that payment to the city before the end of the fiscal year, and brought in a new DDA director who has already done a wonderful job in bringing in new staff and getting to the point where they will be able to go forward in the future very well. Additionally, I have been able to work with peers and partner organizations through lateral management to be able to extend the sphere of my influence without actually having control. What I have learned through the process of working with you is that the opportunity here in Kent County is that there are changing demographics, a lack of brand awareness, and a need for consensus building. So why would you hire me as the next Kent County administrator? You would hire me because of my lived experience. As a black man in America, as I have experienced what it is like to be repressed. As a Christian in America, I've experienced what it is like to be at the top of the food chain. As a presumed North African of Muslim descent in France, I know what it is like to be the other. I have a lifetime of experience learning to navigate and create enough space to survive and just be included. And that lifetime of experience has led me to dedicate my professional career to creating places that are diverse, welcoming, equitable, and inclusive for all. In Georgia, when I was doing my team building, I demanded equitable treatment for women. And that could be seen in my demands of making sure that all of my female staff were paid the same as my male staff, and that when I had one female employee who did not counter-negotiate for fear that she would lose her job, that I counter-negotiated for her. You would hire me because I believe in 2,000 years of historical evidence that society is best when we are diverse, equitable, and inclusive, and I have demonstrated that throughout my work history. If you want someone who has been in charge of a county before, I am not the candidate for you. If you want a West Michigan homegrown talent, I am not the candidate for you. If, however, you want a proven change agent, a champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion before it was the thing, an authentic leader who has experienced both points of privilege and repression, a skilled financial manager, a person of impeccable integrity, and a calculated risk taker, then Kalfani Stevens is the person you should hire, and that is me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalfani. Do we have questions today? Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate and admire your spirit. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I've managed, multiple people over the years. In my day job, I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets, but Kent County is a different scale than what I've done, personally, probably 20 times as big. And so if I was standing where you're standing, I'd be nervous about taking that leap. So my question is, are you nervous about taking that leap, and how do you see, yourself adjusting to that drastic change in scale, even if it's the same kind of administrative type tasks?
So, great question, Commissioner, and thank you. My answer to that question is, if I weren't nervous, then I would not be the candidate for you. Because if I weren't nervous, that would mean that I was entirely too full of hubris to be able to understand that I need not be the smartest person in the room. What I need to be is the person who has the ability to see the forest and the trees and marshal all of the resources that are needed to cultivate both.
Any other questions for Kalfani? Commissioner LeGrand.
This is Tom. I had a question.
Tom, just a second. I called on Commissioner LeGrand, and then I'll get you next.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is, one of the aspects of diversity we have in Kent County is extremely rural areas and then a large growing municipal center of the county. And I'm wondering what in your experience speaks to your ability to address drastically different needs, priorities of that scale, from all the way from rural through suburban into the urban center of the county?
Great question. Part of the answer to that question is a part of my personal background, which we were not able to get into over the course of the interviews. And that part of my history is that my mother's family is from rural Georgia, where we still have a family farm. So on a personal level, I understand the needs and the desires of a agrarian society and culture. When we take the personal out and we just go to the professional experiences that I've had and all of the different places that I've worked, they have been very focused on the urbanized development, but one of the things that I have continued to champion and push because of that background that I have is that individuals in any given community, because a community can be as large or small as you want it to be, can be based on a personal identity, it can be based on any geography, that you want to draw. But any community should be free to decide how it wants to grow and develop. And that means that when you have an area that is very happily living as a rural agrarian community, if that is what they choose to be, then we need to let them be that. One, because people should be allowed to do what it is that makes them happy. That is exactly why you have the preamble to the Constitution of the United States of America. But beyond that, we need food. And food does not grow out of urban streets.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Antor? Commissioner Antor?
Yes, thank you very much. Your introduction comments, you mentioned the word privilege, and we've heard a lot of that over the last several months from people coming in during public comment, using the term privilege. And I just wonder what context you use that term here in this chamber. I guess I don't understand what that means exactly. We've been pretty blessed here in Kent County, and a lot of hard workers and a lot of people that put life savings and everything into businesses in the private sector. And sometimes I feel like the term is just thrown out there without any really meaning. I was wondering what context you use that word privilege in. Thank you.
That is a great question, Commissioner, and I really appreciate you asking it and giving me an opportunity to expand on that. As I use the term privilege, I said that I am, as a Christian in America, I know what it's like to be privileged. Think about the different national holidays that we have. Think about the fact that Christmas is a Christian holiday, and whether you are Jewish, Muslim, non-observing, Sikh, Jainism, Buddhism, everyone in American government has created this day that has nothing to do, or created space around this day that is not part of your personal belief. So I am privileged that my personal belief has been built into the fabric of American society. As a person who has no dietary restrictions, when we had lunch yesterday, I didn't have to question what was in the food. I didn't have to read the labels. But as a person who's aware of that, I did take note and look at the different foods that was there. And there wasn't a gluten-free option. There was a vegetarian option if you chose not to put the chicken on the penne. And there was not a complete vegan option where you had a full complement of protein. So as a person of privilege, I didn't have to worry about those things. As a person who believes in diversity, equity, and inclusion, as I plan events, these are the types of things that I try, and I stress the word try because I fail at times, to be cognizant of. And that is why I introduced the idea of the fact that I know what it is like to be both privileged and repressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wooden?
Sorry, I forgot about the mic. It's been a while since I've had to press this button. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Stevens, thank you so much for coming. It's been truly a privilege to see you present over the last day. Truly excited about you as a prospect, and I just wanted to ask, I've noticed over this day that you've demonstrated you certainly have the mindset, the energy, the creativity, and frankly, the translatable skills to take this role and to lead this county. But your professional background and your technical knowledge is not directly connected to many of the services Kent County currently manages and that counties in Michigan manage. Things like public health, mental health, human services, parks. Can you speak to how you intend to climb that learning curve while still meeting the challenging demands of your job?
Great question. So if you ask 10 different economic developers what is economic development, you'll get 10 different answers. If you ask the 11th person, Calfani Stevens, the answer that you will get is that economic development, one, is not a skill set or a job title. It is a catch-all. In order to actually perform economic development, I have to be intimately aware with all of those other items that you just spoke of. Because the concept of economic development is that we are working inside of a specific geography to lift the tide of all boats in that geography. And so in order to do that, we have to make sure that that place is a place that is people-centric and people want to be. So I do a lot of work currently with parks, writing grants for parks, working with Kaboom, understanding that, hey, if you use federal dollars on this parkland, that parkland has to remain parkland unless you are willing to go through the process to repay those federal grants. Public health is something that personally I have not had to engage with, but I do work very closely with those individuals to make sure that we are providing the services that they need. One of the things that we're doing right now in the city of Flint is we have worked with the public health team to build a new building. It's going to be right outside of our downtown, and I helped them get the land and get the grants to go forward with this project because it was something that was needed in the community. It's not going to add to the tax base. It is going to create some new jobs, but those new jobs were going to be created anyway because they were going to build this building somewhere. I helped them build it in the city of Flint because the city of Flint needs those services. You and I have already spoken about housing, and again, housing is not something that is normally considered a part of economic development, but my belief in economic development is that it is people-central. And so I am there to deliver the services that individuals need. And so I would posit to you that I would climb that learning curve not by trying to become an expert in each of those areas, but by knowing enough about those areas and relying on the experts who are already here in the county to help me staff up the teams needed to use those areas to meet the strategic goals of the county.
Thank you. And if I may, Madam Chair, sorry, you mentioned follow-ups yesterday, so I feel like I need to make one.
It wouldn't be a commission meeting without your follow-ups.
Well, in light of what you just said, economic development is people-centered, I couldn't agree more. One of the next main tasks that the administrator is going to be given is managing and working with the board to develop a plan for how we intend to spend the federal funds coming through the American Rescue Plan. And, you know, we're looking at roughly $127 million coming into this county over the next year and developing a plan to invest those here. How would you broadly envision those funds being reinvested in a people-centered economic development initiative to help us recover from the pandemic and the fallout that occurred?
So, someone a long time ago said a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And with these $127 million that Kent County will be receiving, my thought is that we don't want to waste the opportunity in the sense that we fight the fight of making sure that COVID-19 never happens again. Historically, we have a really bad precedent for that and it's called the Maginot Line in France. So after World War I, the French generals got together and said, hey, we need to make sure that we can never be invaded on our eastern border again. And so they built this massive defensive line so that that couldn't happen. And when World War II broke out, the Germans went around the line. What is my point? My point is that with $127 million, my focus would be not to say, hey, what were all of the ills of COVID-19, but what are all of the ills of the community, and how can we legally spend these COVID-19 funds to address the overall situation and not the very specific minute detail that can easily be worked around.
Thank you.
Commissioner Womack. Yes, is it not working? I don't know if mine's working. You can be Tom Antor today.
I will say, ooh. I will borrow someone else's seat. Good morning, Mr. Stevens.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm Kent County Commissioner Robert S. Womack of the 17th District, and my district and the voters who voted me in are white, black, Hispanic, Indian, Arabian, and it's very diverse in that community. I represent them. They voted me in to be their voice, and I think they would all be proud and support me in saying you are very qualified.
Thank you.
You are qualified. When it comes to your calculus skills, your technical skills, I agree with Matt that we're talking about scales, but not too many people that have taken this position as administrator have ever came in and already managed a $400 million budget or $300 million budget. So it's a scale up jump for everyone. With you, it's a little more significant than some of our past administrators, but you are qualified. The thing is going to come down to who is the most qualified out of three great candidates. And so I just want to make sure that in these chambers that you know, that we know, you are qualified, because it's too many times we get to the point where we're looking at candidates, and when we're telling people they're unqualified, it's just not. Sometimes it's a misrepresentation of words and not the heart of what some of the commissioners mean to say, but we need to be careful about that. And so I'm going to move on. You talked about something very important, you know, and it made me think of like Angelo Dundee. Muhammad Ali wouldn't have been so great without Angelo Dundee. I know there's some sports fans that get mad at that, but with my studying, Mike Tyson wouldn't have been so great without Cus D'Amato. Neither one of these coaches could probably defeat these boxers, and if we were picking people, we would have not knew the combination of Mike Tyson and Cus D'Amato, the combination of Angelo Dundee and Muhammad Ali, the combination of Kafani Stevens and Kent County. One of the things that intrigued me about you is when you said that Green Bay is smaller than Grand Rapids, Michigan, but has a professional team. So I just have two questions, and that's my first one. Could you expound on that for some of the people that may not have been in those 16-hour interviews we had on and off yesterday?
Yes, sir. So the point that I was doing there goes to the idea that if you were to ask Americans to name cities, despite its size and economic performance, Grand Rapids would not likely be named. Green Bay, however, would get named. And so understanding that one of the goals of the county is just growth in general, but also an increased regional activity, I wanted to make the comparison of a city to say, you know, what is it that they have done that we haven't done and we should consider doing in order to get to the place where we want to be? And I also pointed out that the argument could very well be, well, they have a team because, you know, we are too close to Chicago and we're too close to Detroit. Milwaukee has teams, and Green Bay is closer to Milwaukee than Grand Rapids is to Chicago or Detroit. So it's more than just proximity. So that was what I was bringing up, was to say, you know, there is definitely some brand awareness and marketing work that we need to do in order to get to the point where we want to be. And not to say that the goal is to have a professional football team, but to say the goal is to increase our brand recognition.
Well, I thank you, because they say where there's not a vision, the people perish, and all great things start from a seed of thought. In the beginning was the word, and I thank you for in our interviews, you know, challenging us to look at that point. My next question is, when it comes to diversity, a lot of times when people hear the word diversity or privilege, they begin to look at the 2 or 3 different sides of that conflict that they've seen. But you've opened our eyes that there's a kaleidoscope of opportunities and options and different thoughts and angles at looking at diversity, even with some of the questions you answered today so tremendously and articulate here in our boardroom. So some people may assume that you believe diversity is some of the 2 or 3 conflicts, but you had a unique look at diversity. So I'll close my questions by asking you to explain what diversity means to Kafani Stevens once again.
Great question. So again, you heard me talk about being a black man in America, being presumed to be a North African, being of North African and Muslim descent in France, and being a Christian in America. Diversity is looking at all of the different buckets that we can belong to and making sure that, so that is what diversity is. Diversity is looking at all of the different buckets that you could belong to. You could be a man, you could be a woman, you could be transgender, you could be cisgender, you could be heterosexual. Like there's a whole gamut there. You could talk about whatever your ethnic background is. You could talk about hair color, religion, race, so those are the buckets you could belong in from a diversity standpoint. Equity. Equity is looking at the rules that we have put in place as a society, and do those rules create an equitable return for everyone in the society? And now that's the sticking point. That's the hard part. That is the part that doesn't get said out loud. And so I would challenge everyone to think about the United States and the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is lauded as the amendment that abolished slavery. But I need you to read it, and I need you to read it closely, because it abolishes slavery except for someone who has been duly convicted of a crime. So have we really created an equitable playing field? One of the questions that was asked yesterday was about criminal justice reform. And I said, you know, in a minute, that question cannot be adequately addressed. The 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution is the reason why that cannot be adequately addressed in 1 minute. It cannot be adequately addressed at this time, at this podium. But my point is to say that equity is looking at the rules and regulations we have put in place, and are those rules and regulations looking to create a situation and an atmosphere where all of that diversity that I just talked about, all of those different buckets, are treated in a way that they can all expect to get to the same outcome. Now, obviously, everyone can't be number 1, everyone can't be number 2. But does everyone honestly have an equitable chance to get to that point? Have we created a situation that is that? So that's diversity, that's equity. Inclusion. Inclusion is being intentional about how we look at our history. Inclusion is saying, hey, we're going to have this lunch, and I know that even though I will eat everything that's placed on the table, have I created a table that everyone can eat at? So that is what I see when I think of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
You mentioned a picture, though, also, of what someone had a picture once of what diversity was, and you were able to look through that and tell them what was missing in that picture also.
Oh, yes,
That
yes.
was
So
very
yes,
deep
yes.
also.
So for the specific example that I had used in our interview yesterday was that in one of my former positions, our communications professional was bringing me the pictures that they were using for marketing, and I looked through the picture and I said, hey, there are no white men in this picture. Like everyone, and it wasn't just one picture. It was a list of several pictures. I was like, there are no white men in these pictures. And, so the communications professional said, yeah, these pictures are diverse. I said, no, these pictures are not diverse. Diversity is going through all of those buckets and making sure that everyone is included, accounted for, and their voices are heard.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Hennessy.
It has been a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Stevens, and I feel very enriched by having listened to you and learned from you well, for myself being on the, okay, bring it forward. I feel very enriched by having, listened to you and learned from you, and I've had the occasion to hear you more than just yesterday and today. I'm asking a question on behalf of a commissioner who's unable to be here with us today, and we touched on it yesterday a little bit, but I'll ask you simply and directly. How would you help the 19 of us as commissioners be better as commissioners?
That's a great question, Commissioner. What I try to do in all of my dealings with anyone is to really focus on the power of two, which was a speech that I gave to you all over the course of the past couple of days. For those who are in cyberspace and weren't here, I'll just go over it briefly. Two, TU, is the Latin-based word for the singular person you. Two is also the English word for two, more than one. It's also the English word for also, more, including. And so with the power of two, what I do is I work with individuals. I, the individual, begin the conversation. But it can't end with me. For the conversation, I need two, TWO. And so how would I help you be better commissioners would be to say, hey, we need to work together to understand there is a goal that we have set. And we talked a lot about personal history and baggage. I told you about the fact that I have an ancestral family farm. And it's still there. It's part of my history. It's part of who I am. It's part of my makeup. Well, someone else may not have that, but bringing us together and saying, what is this goal? And let's set aside our personal privileges. Let's set aside some of our personal resentments and say, this goal right here, do we all agree on it? And once we agree on it, how do we get there? And it's less important how we get there and more important that we agree on it, right? So the example that I gave yesterday was we could go to Chicago. We can drive south around the lake. We can drive up and take the ferry. Or we can drive a little bit further up to Ludington and take the ferry and then drive down. Either way, we end up in Chicago. So focusing on the fact that we're trying to go to the same place and then understanding and talking through why is it that you want to drive south around the lake? Well, I want to drive south around the lake because I can't swim and I'm afraid of drowning. Okay, well, then we should probably drive south around the lake. Oh, well, no. I want to take the ferry because, now, this is actually technically not true, but I want to take the ferry because the ferry is faster and, we need to get there because my mother is dying and I need to see her quickly. But we have to go together. Well, there was a fourth option that I left out. We can drive over to the airport and fly. So no one's going to drown. We're going to get there in time. And that is how I would help you to be better commissioners, by helping you focus on the goal that you have set, not how you get there, but focus on the goal and then finding all of the logical reasons why we can't do it one way and building consensus to choose the right way for all of us.
Thank you.
Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I wanted to, again, join my colleagues in thanking you, Kalfani, for your interest in the position and for allowing us to put you through the ringer here in the last couple of days. I know it's been quite the gauntlet, but it has been a pleasure to meet you personally and to learn more about you. You know, this is a very public role, and the work that we do is very public, and it's often subject to very public criticism. And although we often try to make everyone happy, we know that's a fruitless endeavor. We know we'll never get there. So how do you manage doing the right thing, doing the mission-based thing, doing, in a lot of times, the innovative thing, at times when you know you're going to face very public criticism or very public fire?
That's easy. You do the right thing because it's the right thing. That is period, paragraph. If I were to try to expound on that, I would say that, you know, there are definitely some people who heard my introduction and bristled and walked away, and I know that whether they are commissioners or just members of the audience who are listening, it was definitely something that turned them off. But I said it because I honestly believe what I said. I said it because I believe it is the right thing. And so if ever I have a choice between doing what I authentically believe is the right thing and doing the thing that is going to keep me employed, I will always choose the right thing, because that I can live with and I can find another job.
Commissioner Antor has another question. Commissioner Antor?
Thank you. Just one last quick question. Vice President Harris, during the campaign, made a kind of an infamous statement, which a lot of people maybe didn't necessarily hear, but she said she's not a champion of equal opportunity, but she's only a champion of equal outcomes. And I was wondering how you feel about that statement. Is that something you share, and what your maybe what your differences are with her when she made that statement?
That is actually a great question, and I would love to sit down and talk with you further about that. The point that I believe she was getting at is to say equal opportunity and just say, well, you know, everyone had an opportunity to go to this school. But did they? Did they really all have an opportunity to go to that school? I went to the University of Michigan on a full-ride academic scholarship. The reason I was able to go to the University of Michigan on a full-ride academic scholarship is because I went to a low-performing school district, and the University of Michigan wanted to create a more diverse campus. So they went specifically to inner-city schools looking for potential great performers. I never could have afforded to pay tuition at the University of Michigan. There is someone who looks exactly like me and went to Bloomfield schools. They did not get the same opportunity that I got. But they had an opportunity to go to the University of Michigan, and they had the opportunity of going to an amazing school district in Bloomfield Hills, whereas I did not have that opportunity. So to say equal opportunity is somewhat of a red herring and is avoiding doing the work. When you say equal outcomes, what you're saying is you want to create a situation that is equitable, where all people are able to benefit from the great public infrastructure that we have created. So it's not to say that I'm not a fan of equal opportunity. Yeah, everyone should have the same opportunity. Use every one of those words. Everyone, same opportunity.
I appreciate that answer. I just would like to follow up with, there's probably 1 million people that look like me who also couldn't afford University of Michigan. And part of my reason I couldn't afford it is because of the personal decisions I made growing up. Didn't save money for that. And, there's a lot of things I didn't do, but I don't feel I earned the right to go there if that's a right. or, I think I made choices that kept me from going to the University of Michigan. So I just, in my personal beliefs, we tend to loop everybody into these buckets, as you say, based on color of their skin or, privilege, where they grew up, what area code. And sometimes personal responsibility is left out of the equation. So that's all I wanted to say on that. I appreciate very much your input this morning.
Thank you. Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Mr. Stevens, congratulations for making it this far. My question, I think, is going to be a little bit different. Let's say at the end of this meeting, you are our choice for the task of leading this county. After you become that person, what do you envision 5 years down the road you would have been able to accomplish for Kent County?
Great question. I believe that I will be able to, as Commissioner Hennessy has asked, help the county commissioners be better commissioners. And what I mean by that is I will be able to help you focus on the goals that you have set. I believe that within 5 years, we're always going to be struggling with the questions of diversity, equity, and inclusion because we're humans. Someone once said that power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That phrase gets misinterpreted and misused often, but that phrase speaks to human nature. So it would be disingenuous of me to say that, oh, I'm going to be here and in 5 years from now, everything is going to be beautiful and great. And no, we're going to be human. And we're going to have faults and flaws, and we're going to work through them. But my vision is that in 5 years, we will be 5 years closer to being the diverse, equitable community that you want. We will have a name recognition. It's not, we don't have a magic wand. In 5 years, Grand Rapids is not going to be Green Bay. But in 5 years, it's very, very possible that Grand Rapids or Kent County, West Michigan as a region, is a place where more people actively are saying they're going for their summer vacation, right? I will tell you that, I'm over on the east side. When most people think about going to the beach or going on a summer vacation, they may go to Traverse City. There are quite a few people who have vacation homes in the Thumb area, so Port Austin. But most people, they can't wait to go to Florida, South Carolina. But we have an amazing, wonderful beach right here that is just ignored by a large part of the population because they don't know about it. So in 5 years, I definitely believe that we can change our name recognition. In 5 years, I believe that we could definitely be much closer to having a very robust public transit system that makes it possible for everyone to participate in the economy that we have. One of the things when we talk about public transit and the cost of it, again, it is a false comparison, but it will illustrate the point. Any city of substantial size, New York, Paris, Chicago, Washington, D.C., has a metro system. And that metro system or subway system, train system, whatever word you would like to use, that system is highly subsidized by the government. And why is that? It's not because of traffic congestion. There's already traffic congestion, right? You could take away the metro and there'd still be traffic congestion. It's because in order to have a system where everyone can participate and get to all of the cultural gems and get to a place of employment, they needed a system that everyone could afford. And so I believe that is something that we really need to look at. And it's not, do we have to have a train system? It is, have we invested in an equitable transportation system that allows everyone the mobility to get the good paying job that they need. Commissioner Antor was talking about personal decisions and the outcomes thereof. Okay, so when we look at that and we think about the personal decisions that someone makes, right? So I have been dealt something that has absolutely nothing to do with the personal decision that I made, right? So my parents had a certain lifestyle that I was born into, and they live in the far reaches of the county, and we don't have a lot of money. Again, I'm a child. None of these things are any decisions of mine. We live in the far reaches of the county. I grow up there, and I decide that I want to go to school. I want to go to GVSU. How am I going to get there? I don't have a car. I don't have the money to own a car. All right, so I'm going to go and I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to wait tables and do what I can to save up money to do that. All right, you and I know how much a waiter in the out part of the county is likely to make. It's not enough money for them to buy a car and commute back and forth to Grand Valley every day for classes. But it is enough money to buy a bus ticket if we have a reliable bus. So that is the vision that I have that we can do in 5 years.
Commissioner Womack for a second question.
Yes, thank you. As an activist / commissioner, there's a lot of things I help in my community that I don't necessarily bring through the board, because I know that when it comes to the social issues, we don't have the legislative or judicial power here at Kent County to solve all of the social ills. But when there's an opportunity like helping small businesses and being able to knock on over 200 doors with Grampus Chamber, Dante Villarreal, and bring my community the information so they can take advantage of the great things Kent County is doing as we provide services to them, that's some of the things I do as a commissioner. So my question for you is, as you look at Kent County, our budgets, our departments, could you tell me a few of the things you studied about our departments? And you talked about how you could help us be better commissioners, but our department heads, what could you tell them that will give them the confidence to believe who you will be working with, probably even more than us, as close as you'll be working with us, but our department heads? What have you studied your knowledge about our departments and how you would help those departments make sure they have the resources, tools, and support to continue doing the great job, but take it to the next level?
That is a great question, Commissioner, and unfortunately the answer that I have to give you is going to be lacking. And that is that yesterday I presented to you a 120-day plan. On that 120-day plan, you will notice that in the first 30 days, I would be meeting with all of the internal staff to find out what are their expectations, to get feedback from them, to understand what is it that they need, what is it that they currently have that is working for them, and what is it that they perceive as being lacking. Then over the course of the next 60 days, I will be, well, actually it continues throughout. I will be establishing regular one-on-ones with them to be able to make sure that we are touching bases and making sure that I am presenting them with all of the tools and resources that they need in order to be successful at what it is that they have been tasked to do. Additionally, I will be looking in those first 30 days and then following up in the next 60 to 90 days. In the first 30 days, looking at it initially, and then in those next 60 days, following up with saying, okay, what are the incentives that we have in place? So when a lot of times with work performance, everyone wants to talk about training. There's some things that you can't train, right? Some things can be solved by training, but in process improvement, there are 6 different buckets, and I'm not going to try to name them all because I will leave one out. But there's 6 different buckets. Training is only one of those buckets. incentivization, have we created the proper incentives, the proper carrots and sticks in order to get this work done? And so I will be looking at that and looking at all of the 6 different buckets to make sure that we are putting in place the things that we know through trial and error, through history, that call to human nature and get us to be our best selves. So the reason why I said my answer is lacking is that I can't tell you specifically about the Parks and Rec Department and what I think should be done there. I cannot tell you specifically about the Planning Department and how I would make changes there, because I haven't been there to talk to those individuals to know what to suggest yet.
Madam Chair, I would just like to express my appreciation for Commissioner Womack's earlier comments and bringing up the example of the discussion around Green Bay. But I would like to add that from my perspective, I just wish we could get a professional football team in Detroit.
Touche.
All right, with that, do we have any more questions? We are approaching an hour. Any other questions for our Mr. Stevens today? Seeing none, thank you so much. We really
Thank you all.
appreciate it. Thank you. Because we're hybrid, I would like to take a 2-minute break, but we need a motion and a roll call for that. Does anyone want to do that?
Motion to take a 2-minute break.
Support.
All right.
You guys probably support it.
Mr.
What am
Deputy
I-
Clerk, we do need to call a roll? Let's just, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
2-minute break. All right, well, welcome, Dr. London. Start your presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. It is so nice to be in this sacred space where we have done so much work over the years to build policy and serve this community and make this a better place for all. It has been a long time since I've literally been in this space before you, and feel really good about that and the fact that we've come so far as a community to this place where now we're back together in person. So thank you. And thank you to the board for this process and to the search committee for your terrific work. It has been a rigorous process. Yesterday it was especially interesting, but fantastic as well. And I think we had so many great conversations, and I want to thank the community also for participating in yesterday and making that possible. So one thing I've learned from Wayman and Daryl before him is that in this space, one of the most important roles of the administrator is to be succinct and to be to the point. And so I'm going to try to do that here. You all know me professionally pretty well. And so I'm not going to talk a lot about my resume. I think you know who I am. I think you and the community knows Dr. Adam London, Director of the Kent County Health Department, pretty well. Today, in my opening comments, I want to talk a little bit about Adam and who I am. And I want you to know a little bit about who I am as a person and 3 reasons why I'm here today as a candidate for this position. First, I was born into a wonderful family, but a family that didn't have a lot of resources when I was young. In fact, the first home I remember living in was a trailer in Rodney, Michigan, about 60 miles north of here. And while we didn't have a lot of financial resources, we did have a treasury of wisdom that was passed along to us and values that was passed along to us. My parents, my grandparents really impressed upon us the importance of faith, family, service to community, service to country. Try to make the world a better place. Serve your neighbor, love your neighbor. They're important values that have been instilled within me. I also have a wonderful wife, Ann, and together we have 7 amazing children ranging in age and height from Zachary, who's almost 25, who's 6'2", that I look up to, all the way down to little Theodore, who's about 3'2" and 2 years old, who I also look up to in some ways. And I can tell you that they also inspire me to be the best version of myself I can be and to continually improve and to make the world a better place for them, but also to make the world a better place for other families and for people who are big and strong and for people who are small and vulnerable. That's the number one reason why I'm here, to make a difference. And this role gives me a platform to work with you to make a difference in this community. Second reason I'm here is because of the amazing people that we work with in public service. And I can't tell you how many times it has come to my attention how extraordinary the people that we work with are. So many crises over the years that you and I and our team have worked together on. Most recently, COVID, when we learned a little over a year ago that there was this new strange virus on the other side of the world that was threatening to come here and potentially take 6,000 or 7,000 of our neighbors. Our team, our public servants who are part of this community, who live, work here, it's personal to them. They rose to the occasion. They said, no, not here, not on our watch. That's not going to happen. That's what they did. And so when I look at our case mortality rate, and it's half of other similar communities, and I look at the level of suffering, while it was and has been horrific, has been less than other communities, I'm incredibly proud of them, and I recognize them for who they are, which are real heroes in our community. And so the second reason that I'm here today is to support them, to build them up, to give them the resources they need, to give them the clarity of purpose that they need each and every day, to know that they're appreciated, they're supported, and that they're heroes who are making a real difference in this community. The third reason that I'm here is because I recognize that we have a lot of big, wicked problems ahead of us still. And we have solved a lot of big, wicked problems, or we're making progress on a lot of challenging things. But we have other crises that we need to finish, we need to make improvements on, whether it's the lack of inclusion, the lack of upward mobility in the community, the lack of housing in this community, the need to build infrastructure and create a framework for new development and economic growth, the importance of us really embracing our role and our relationship with the environment that we have in Kent County, turning our face back to our resources like the river, making sure that we have protection for our groundwater, for our green spaces, that we have a community and an environment that we can look forward to as a proud heritage for our grandchildren, our children, and for generations to come. So that's the third reason, because I know that we have some challenges. I know what we're capable of, and I know that we can do it. So in closing, I think it's incredibly important that whoever fills this position as administrator has intelligence, has energy, has high integrity, is a person that this community trusts, is a proven team builder, and a proven collaborator in this community, because we as a county entity can't do it all ourselves. We have to partner with the townships, the cities and villages, with the private sector, with education, with all of the other partners that we're blessed to have here in Kent County. And I think that I've shown over the course of my time as the director of the health department that I have those traits. And so again, I thank you for this opportunity today and look forward to our conversation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Adam has the privilege of knowing that we like short presentations. So really appreciate that today. And he has been through the ringer and has done it over the course of the last couple of days. So thank you for that. Who would like to ask questions? Who's first? Anyone? Commissioner Sparks.
I have more of a comment, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. I just want to thank you for everything that you did through the pandemic. Like, you were the rock star.
I don't know if your mic is.
It's on.
No, we're not hearing it.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's a little bit
Okay,
better.
thank you. So I just want to thank you for the strength that you showed through the pandemic. I don't know if it was getting you ready for this. I don't know if it was just you being you, which I believe that probably is it. But I just want to thank you for that. You really did an amazing job for Kent County altogether, so thank you for that. And thank you for applying.
Thank you, Commissioner Sparks. We really have an amazing team, and I can't tell you how much of a blessing they have been to me. A lot of the calmness that you see is because I know I've got a team I can count on.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I'd first like to start off by echoing Commissioner Sparks' sentiments. You listed those qualities that you think the county administrator should have, and over the last year, you've clearly demonstrated you have those qualities, and I think it is it is certainly true that the steps you took, the leadership that you provided over the last year saved lives in this community, and no one can ever thank you enough for that. My first question is, in your interview yesterday before the search committee, you were asked about your greatest weakness. I think we all commented that's the worst question you could ever get, but we all get it. And I appreciated your reference that, or that you acknowledged one weakness, which was you may assume the best in people for a little too long, and that makes it more difficult to hold staff accountable, to ensure deliverables are met, and to make difficult disciplinary decisions as an administrator, which is the task no one likes to do, but often is required. And I appreciate that general self-awareness, but I think a lot of folks can be generally self-aware of their weakness. I myself am, but don't always realize the instance where that's coming out. Can you walk me through how you intend to identify when those instances might be happening with yourself, and also how you intend to build a team around you to overcome that?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Wooden. And I think perhaps you read a little bit too much into my comment of weakness yesterday, and that, yes, I am a very optimistic person. I do truly see the best in people, and sometimes I do perhaps give them a little bit too much benefit of the doubt. And so it's been important to me in the past to make sure I have some other clear thinking around those decisions, those relationships. I do hold people accountable, and I do have a history of doing that, and also making tough decisions. And it's unfortunate, it's painful when we have to make those tough decisions, because I do recognize there are lives, there are families, there are others involved. But ultimately, we have a purpose here, we have a mission, and we need to make sure that our staff and our team are making sure those deliverables are delivered, and making sure that we're following through with being good stewards of the resources we've been given. So it's important for me that when I am faced with someone who's struggling like that we identify clearly what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and are they in the proper role? What kind of professional development might they need? What kind of a skills gap might there be that's behind this? And if we determine that there's a lack of integrity, of course, or there's a lack of work ethic, then we have to make that difficult decision. But we always do it after doing a full fact-finding, make sure we clearly understand what the challenge is and what the root cause is.
Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Adam. I, too, wanted to share my thoughts about your job as Health Department Director. It's been an incredible year and a half. I know it's always a difficult job, but you were faced with some unbelievable, you talk about moving targets. Every day was a moving target, and I really appreciated your hard work and all you did to get us through that. So on to your next step here. Part of the problem is you did such a good job as Health Department Director. I hate to see you leave that post, and I mean that. It's a tough position as well, and it'd be tough to find somebody with that skill set to fill that. But this is part of the process, and one of the biggest things that you're going to be facing, I guess, if you were appointed as director, is something coming up soon, and that's the amphitheater project, which is getting some attention. It's going to be a public-private entity. At the end of the day, there's going to be money coming from the county into that project. We're going to have final say on whether that project ends up wherever it ends up. So we are part of that. And what I was wondering, one of the concerns I have, it seems like whenever there's anything big coming down the pike, it tends to end up in Grand Rapids. And that's fine. I mean, Grand Rapids is the city, and that's kind of what everybody thinks of when they think of Kent County. But we are not the Grand Rapids Board of Commissioners. We are the Kent County Board of Commissioners. And one of my concerns is the fact that we may be overlooking, I don't think it's intentional, but we may be overlooking areas that could provide phenomenal locations for things of this nature, and without really getting a lot of due consideration. And I was wondering how you are going to be able to balance the political, the politics that revolve around these decisions with being a good steward of taxpayers' dollars. And for instance, I think that project's going to be north of $50 million by the time they acquire the property, do all the infrastructure changes. It's a massive project to do downtown because it's downtown. If you're to take it to an outlying area, the costs are going to be mitigated maybe a tenth of what the cost would be downtown. And so, those are tough decisions. I almost apologize for asking this question because it's a difficult one to process because all the different things, politics included. But how would you address that dynamic of the outlying areas maybe not getting some of those projects, and what your thoughts are?
Well, good morning, Commissioner Antor, and it's good to hear your voice. I think what you're describing is incredibly important, and we need to make sure that there's no gap in communication of opportunities, and to make sure that the county is fully apprised and this board is fully apprised in a timely manner of when these sort of opportunities are coming along, so that the voice of all of the different parts of the county can be heard in that decision making and informed before decisions are put in front of us, where you have to execute based perhaps on limited knowledge and based on a limited opportunity to voice the desires and the interest of your own district. And so I think making sure that we have good communication between the administrator's office and this board is going to be very important, so that these sort of concerns and these sort of opportunities that you've described can be brought to our deliberation well in advance of when we have to execute a decision.
Commissioner Hennessy.
It has been wonderful listening to the perspectives and to hear what you've gained and your outlook for the future as we've gone through this process. It's wonderful to see this broader view of Adam London. Yesterday morning, Vice Chair Steck started off asking questions and addressed this, and it seems to have broad appeal. It appeals to me, but Commissioner Bolkowski, who's unable to be here today, also asked this question. It's simply, how will you help the 19 of us as a county board be better commissioners?
It's a great question, and thank you, Commissioner Hennessy and Commissioner Bolkowski, for bringing that forward. I think that that is going to be an important part of any success that we're going to have going forward as an organization. We have to make sure that we have clear lines of communication between the administration and staff and this board. I think that, I was president of the National Environmental Health Association several years ago, and we had a similar issue, and we brought aboard a training, a framework called Boards That Lead. And recognizing that our board there, and I think this board here, has a desire to be more active, to assume a greater leadership role in the community, and I think that our staff wants that as well. So how do we work together, recognizing where the lanes are, where the roles are, to work more effectively? And I think it really begins with something as simple as breaking bread together and building relationships. I'm very fortunate to have a relationship with most of you that's gone back a number of years. I need to build on that if I'm in this role. Even if I'm in my current role, I need to build on that. And I would really look to have an ongoing series of conversations, first and foremost with board leadership, but ultimately with every commissioner who's here, making sure that we're having a regular coffee, lunch, breakfast, whatever it is. Maybe it's one-on-one, maybe it's in small groups, but we need to make sure that we have a relationship of trust and two-way conversation if we're going to make sure that we are, in fact, a board that's leading and that's growing in its impact on the community.
Thank you.
Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Adam. As always, really appreciate hearing from you. So you've been described as emotionally reserved and cautious. It's clear you're soft-spoken and calm. I see those traits in you. Perhaps because people see those traits in me. That's a joke. Thanks for laughing at me. A little levity. But I want to fill in on Commissioner Wooden's question a little bit and push you a little bit on that. So you gave us some general notions about how you deal with a member of your team who's maybe not in the right place and maybe does need to, maybe someone else needs to be in that position. So can you give us obviously we're not naming names here, but can you give us just some specifics on why you may have had to encourage someone to move along?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Skaggs. And I'm glad I wasn't the first person to laugh at your joke.
Thanks.
And I'm not sure who it was. Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure who it was who described me as emotionally reserved. It certainly probably wasn't one of the family members I described earlier on. I do think I have that trait of being emotionally reserved. I would say calm. And I think that calm can be interpreted that somehow because I think I have to be in this role. And I have to be someone who's analytical, who is very careful not to jump to conclusions. And far too many times, either a constituent makes an accusation, or there is a customer service issue, or there's a policy issue. And there's a huge temptation to jump to a conclusion and to react to someone and their perceived failure in a situation. And I have found in so many times that when I do the investigation and do the research, that there's more to the story and that it's very different than what I originally thought. And so that has conditioned me somewhat, that when I do see that someone is not performing, to not jump to the conclusion that they're a bad actor, and to really do the analysis, which again is part of my DNA as an analytical person and a data person. And so that's where I can be a little process-oriented, a little, maybe perhaps some would say slow when it comes to executing those decisions. I have, again, done that, though. There have been times where we had people who it was very clear after that investigation that they did not have the strengths, the skills, the ability to do the job in front of them. And the people and their teammates were suffering because of that. And they had to, in a couple cases, be reassigned to other areas within the organization when that wasn't an opportunity, and in other cases they had to be let go. And when that's clear, that's the right thing to do, that's the only thing that we can do, and especially with our responsibility to the community for their tax dollars and for the things that we promised that we're going to deliver.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I may think too highly of myself to compare me to you in this way, but I've always seen you as someone who's always willing to have kind of the honest and open conversation, collaboration, and I hope in my, service here, but also my day job, I'm the same. Another way that maybe we're similar is I know in my day job I like to, get into the work, with the team, and there's hard problems to solve, and you get in and you're focused, and then I lift my head up a month later and realize I've forgotten to communicate, with a broader, range of people that aren't in the work. How do you see yourself managing that challenge with the administrator role that has a myriad of channels of communication?
That's a great question and a very pragmatic question, Commissioner Coleman, and one that I have seen in myself as well when the busyness of the day-to-day and the demands of the community, and of course the last year and a half have just been extraordinary with that, with meetings in many cases from 6 in the morning until 9, 10 o'clock at night. And so there have been times where I've had to check myself, and I've assigned people on my team to check me also if they're seeing that I'm not communicating to my team enough, because that can happen, either to my team of senior executives at the health department or the broader staff. And so that's something where we have to be aware of that in advance. I think being a good communicator is really another one of those core foundations of this position. And so I will make it a priority to elevate my communications and to assign people in my circle to make sure they're checking me and reminding me as well. One of the things that we've done, as I think everyone knows, the health department, is we recognized our limitations in communication a number of years ago to the community. And we were trying to grow that skill set and that resource to the community, but also to our staff. And we recognized that, you know, emails are fine, meetings are difficult, especially when you have hundreds of staff and they're often in the field doing different things, that using social media, becoming the media ourselves was a key thing. And we recognized that we often had important messages for our staff or for other stakeholders in the community or for the community itself, that we were relying on the traditional media to tell our story. That was putting us in a very, very vulnerable position, but depending on how valuable they thought our message was. So at the health department, we created what we call Studio Kent. Everyone has seen it and has seen the fruit of Studio Kent over the past year. It's paid for itself many times over in the amount of airtime that it has created and the voice and the footprint in communication in the community that's created for us. I would look to expand that, to expand our communications effort, to expand our communications team, to invest in communications, because I think the things that we're doing in Kent County are extraordinary now. We've got room to improve and room to grow, but we're right now doing some extraordinary things. And in many cases, the community and our stakeholders don't even know about it because we haven't told our story very well yet. I would look to expand that and improve that.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to return to the conversation you've had about the boards that lead approach. You mentioned the importance of individual relationships with each of us, which certainly is important. The other side of it, beyond relationships, are structures. And what structures would you modify, change, bolster to encourage that boards that lead approach so that the commission can is more integrated in the policymaking process at every step, not just setting a strategic plan and approving a budget?
Yeah, and thank you for that question, Commissioner Wooden, because that really gets into the action items of how we make this happen. And I think, you know, one thing that's going to be very important for us is that we really budget the plan and that we have your participation in our budget process at an earlier stage so that we can make sure that what we're including in that budget reflects your priorities and the strategic plan that we have. Also our performance measures. And right now I see a lack of integration between some of the systems we have in place within our organization, from our strategic plan, from our budgeting, our performance measures, our employee evaluations, the performance improvement plans that we have. They're great tools. And some departments have them aligned and others not so much. And so I think we need to work together to best serve you, to put you in a position to make informed policy and to make good decisions with the budget, which is really the greatest reflection of our priorities, is to make sure that you have good systems in place before those proposals get to you. So those are systems that I would focus on in order to clarify that for all of you.
Commissioner Womack.
Yes, when you look at the coronavirus, and I want to first start by thanking you and congratulating you on a job well done as the head of our Kent County Health Department. But post-pandemic, as we come out of there, as we look at our Bureau of Equalization, when we look at our tax base, if there's any shift in our taxes, how would this affect your job if there are revenue streams that are lowered? How would that affect how you look at our budget and recommendations you would make to this board?
Yeah, so of course there's great turbulence right now in the economy and uncertainty in what our economic future and what revenues may look like for the next handful of years. We're going to need to stay on top of that. And we're going to need to recognize there may be a point where we're forced to make some difficult decisions. If that point comes, it's important again to have conversation with this board to identify what those realities are, what our priorities are, and we're going to have to invest in them appropriately and make sure that we do the important things to the level that are going to be successful. I think sometimes there's temptation in organizations just to cut everything back across the board so that we compromise the ability to do anything very well. And I would advise against that if we're in that position. I would rather see that we make the tough decisions about what our priorities are, making sure that we're following through with those in an A-plus extraordinary way, and perhaps saying no to other things, or working with community partners. And that's been an area that I think we've done pretty well over the past few years. And the Kent County Population Health Consortium is one of those examples where we don't have it within our budget to do many of the things that the community has recognized our priorities, whether it's improved mental health services, or reducing the rate of substance use, or obesity, or creating more access to nutrition or dental care. So many things that aren't in our budget regularly. But what we found is that we bring interested stakeholders to that conversation. We often can find ways to leverage their resources to common interests. And I think we've seen a pathway in the past to do that effectively. And I would hope, certainly we're not in that position that you've described, but if we are, we need to make sure we're leveraging those resources to make sure the community is served.
Thank you, Adam. And my final question, hopefully you can be brief, and hopefully the other commissioners allow you to answer this question. It won't turn into taking up all of your time, our time, and everybody that's coming in on Zoom. But I think it's just fair that we ask all three commissioners what they feel about diversity. How would they explain diversity, especially for our Hispanics? And as our last candidate said, for all people, of course, but with us not having Hispanic representation on the board, historically, a low number of African Americans, racial groups, sexual preferences, people that will feel that, hey, we may not have the biggest amount of votes on the county, but we are voters and we are taxpayers. So I think the diversity question is a fair question to ask all three candidates, but not take up all your time with that, because we have so much more that the administrator does. But this is a priority for Kent County, and it's in our mission statement.
Thank you, Commissioner Womack. And I'll try to be succinct with a very, very big question. And the reality in my perspective is that every person who resides here in Kent County is sacred and precious, and we need to serve them. And I want to see them successful. And at the health department, we have had this approach for many years. And we see that there are social determinants of health. There are things that, whether it's education or economics or environment or transportation, where we don't have equal access, and we do see great disparity in our community. And I really think that as a community we can do better. And I really think that we should be partnering with other organizations and leaders in this community who agree with us on that. And that we should have an aspirational plan as a region to say, at least in these domains where we see disparity, we're going to work together as a community, and within an aspirational period of time, we're going to eliminate disparity in these domains, whether it's education or housing. That we can have this conversation. We need to have this conversation as a community about what those measures are. But I think we need to be intentional about that. And we need to do that because it's the right thing to do. But we also need to do that because it's the right thing for the future of our community. And right now, we see with the lack of upward mobility in this community for many people, that we are losing hundreds of millions of dollars in productivity every year because people don't have the same access to that upward mobility. I look forward to a day when I can look at health and wellness data and not be able to see that people of any description are living shorter lives or are doing less well off economically than others, or academically or socially than others. I think we need to really have some aspirational ideas here and try to raise everyone to a level where they're excelling and they're thriving in our community. And I'm sorry, I've gone on too long already.
Thank you, but great answer. Thank you.
Commissioner Breivy.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Adam, I am so glad that you are one of our finalists for this position. I've had the honor of serving alongside with you on the Community Health Advisory Committee for the last number of years, and I really admire the work that you've done with our health department. And throughout this pandemic, how you and the staff at the health department really carried Kent County. I think it was definitely a successful program, with the vaccine clinic, and we can, name all the successes. But I guess, you've been able to serve during Gerald DeLabio's time as county administrator and also Wayman Britt's. And what I'm curious about is, if we select you as the next county administrator, what are the first few things that you would like to do, in that role? How would you like to serve the county in that position? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Breeden. It's been an honor to work alongside you in the Community Health Advisory Committee also. I think we've done some great work there. Certainly, there's a lot that I admire about Wayman and Daryl, and I've learned a lot of things from both of them. I think the number one priority, quite practically on day one, is I need to appoint an interim replacement of the health department, because we are still in the midst of a pandemic and we can't afford to have a lack of leadership there. I think that building this relationship on day one is also very, very important. I can't understate how important the relationship that we have from the administrator and the staff with this board. We're going to have a team approach. I'm going to need to surround myself with a team of experts, identify the skills and the strengths of those who are currently in the administrator's office. Need to continue to build upon the relationships that I have with the other department leaders, and I know them well. I've worked alongside them for well. I think we're going to do a lot of innovative things together going forward. Something I also want to do in that first 30 days is create what I'm calling an inclusion review council, where we've noticed the health department in the past, we've had we'll call it materials review committee there, and this is a diverse committee of people who review any policy or publications that we're releasing to the community, to be a radar for when we're being unintentionally biased, or when we're using words or images that maybe we didn't recognize or I didn't recognize as a problem, to give us that red flag so that we can make sure that our words, our policies, the images that we're using are reflective of the community that we are. We've got a lot of work to do. And there's a long list here, and I'd be happy to share that with you, Commissioner Breeden. But I have no presuppositions that this job is going to be a lot of work, and we have some enormous challenges. The staffing is another one. Something we're working on right now at the health department is what we're calling the health department's workforce recovery and revitalization plan, wrapping supports around the team that has been so overworked and wounded in many ways through the pandemic. And I think we need to broaden that to our entire staff to make sure they have the supports they need to continue to be successful and not to be harmed by what they've endured.
Thank you, Adam. I have a couple questions. And surprisingly, didn't get to drill down on a couple of these during our time, our many hours being together. Yesterday, you mentioned a little bit about keeping the board and the staff in their lanes. Can you drill down on that a little bit? How do you envision that? There are times where board members kind of, go in and out, and I guess it was briefly mentioned, and I wanted you to drill down on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that and thank you for the Commissioner, Chair Bolger. I think that we need to make sure that our staff understand the role of the commissioners and know that and welcome the conversation with commissioners. I think that our commissioners need to know that they are leaders and they are encouraged and welcome to interact with staff. I think that we ought not have an environment where there is, when I say lane clarity, I don't mean that we're separating the two and never shall the two talk again. That's not what I mean, quite the opposite. But ultimately, we also need to make sure we understand as staff what our role is and who we report to and how we have those structures in place. And then we have open conversations so that we all know who's talking to who, and we don't have people working on the same project in conflict with others who are working on something else independently with a different commissioner. So that communication is really the lane clarity that I'm describing.
Commissioner Ponstein? I did. I'll ask my next. I'll give you a chance.
Congratulations, Dr. London, on making this far into the selection process. Jane Goodall once said that, she's still around, I'm running out of time and I've got to move faster. And a lot of people focus more on the death of it, but I think after thinking about what she said. It was more of all of the great things that she has done. That's not what she was focused on. It was what is yet to be done. And I've got some of those tendencies in me is, what we've done is great, but there's so much out there that still needs to be done. And I think I've been quoted here before that one thing government does do well is study things to death. So with all the urgent things out there, and we hear them on the headlines every night in the news, what is your philosophy on prioritizing the important things that need to be done and yet to be done, but aren't getting done?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Poundstein. I think we need to listen to the community on that. You all are one way that the community expresses their priorities. We have other ways. The community health needs assessment is one, where the community over and over again has told us that mental health is a crisis in this community. And I think we're responding to that, and I believe we're going to have some exciting news on that front here in the near future. But I think that we need to really listen to the community on what their priorities are. And I think that we ought to survey them, and I think we ought to have a more open two-way conversation with the community in a much more intentional way. Some departments are very good at that. I'm going to encourage and really expect that all departments are doing that, because they're another great touch point with the community and can understand what the community wants and what they want to see our future look like. And so I think we need to bring those inputs together and have that conversation as a leading body to decide what are we going to do now to meet those needs.
All right, my last question. As a board, you will be our only employee. The county administrator then is the manager of the rest of all of the staff. And there have been times that's been a challenge for some of us with that setup. And obviously the board changes with elections. You will constantly have a different executive committee, a different chairperson, different makeup. Have you ever in your career had to report or be accountable to a female or a person other than your own gender?
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes. When I worked in Ottawa County as the supervisor of environmental health services, it's been 16, 17 years ago now, the director of that division was a woman. And we had a very positive working relationship and did so for a number of years.
Great. Any other questions for Dr. London? All right, thanks for running through the gauntlet these last few months and especially these last few days, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Again, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's keep going. No break, Charlie. Good morning, Al. Welcome to the Kent County Board of Commissioners. Does it look any different?
I used to come here every month for Metro Council meetings.
Oh, yeah, that's
until
right.
COVID happened, but,
That's
so
right.
no, it looks very familiar, but it looks refreshed somehow, so.
Okay.
Boy, it was deathly quiet when I walked in. So, well, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to talk a little bit about myself. I am a almost lifelong West Michigan native. I was born and raised in Grand Haven, and except for going away for college, working in Lenawee County for a year and a half, and you know what? South Haven thinks they're in West Michigan. They might be in Southwest Michigan, but they think they're in West Michigan, so I'm counting them. That gets me at about 95%. But that's important because my family sailed their fishing boat from the Netherlands to Wisconsin in 1857, and the fish weren't biting very well in Wisconsin, so they sailed to Grand Haven, and that's where my family has been, and actually in Ottawa, Kent, Muskegon, and a little bit who I think were sent to Allegan for bad behavior, I'm not sure. But really, it's been a West Michigan family this whole time. I went to University of Michigan for my undergrad, and I went pre-law, and I thought that was going to be my career. And then I figured out that there was only one poli-sci pre-law student who made it into, or poli-sci student who made it into law school. And I only had about a 3.3, that person had a 4 points, so I thought, wow, I'm shot. So I went to grad school to get into law school, but I got an internship right away in Spring Lake, and I fell in love with local government management, and that's all I've ever wanted to do since I was 22 years old. I've worked in 4 counties, 3 cities, and a village over that time, and I think that the local government experience, working as a city manager and assistant city manager, really prepared me well for county administration, because I would say at least 25 to 30% of my job as a city manager was dealing directly with the public and issues that the public had. You know, in South Haven, we ran our own electric system, so when people couldn't pay their power bill, they'd usually end up in my office. And also dealing with people that weren't having their best day. That typically happens in the average day of a city manager quite a bit more frequently than the average day of a county administrator, but it gives you a sense of community, a sense of the needs and issues and concerns people have, and you actively are involved in dealing with those. So why Al Vanderburg? Why am I here? I love my job in Ottawa County. It's a great job. I've been there 17 and a half years. I've had a very supportive Board of Commissioners. As I look at management, in my head, it's 2 wheels. There's the operations wheel, and those are the things that are repeatable. They need to keep happening. You apply continuous improvement. You find ways to improve it, but you know what? We'd better be right on the budget. The laws that we administrate should be done correctly. You know, everything we do needs to be transparent and repeatable. That's that side of the brain of an organization. But there's another side of the brain, and that's the side where you need disruption. And so I almost see it like a flywheel, or if you think of a car, like the serpentine belt, where you've got one side spinning here, and that's the regular operations part of an organization or a county. And then when you have an issue or a need or an itch, or there's some reason why you think something needs improvement, well, then that goes over into this side of the belt. And that's where you apply innovative thinking, different kinds of thinking, and once you get it perfected, it flips back over into that static side of the belt. It's almost a great illustration of this would be Blockbuster. So many of our most innovative companies of the past have failed to adjust to the internet or to Amazon or whatever. So think of Blockbuster. I mean, they were very innovative when they started, and then something called Netflix came along. And there was a point where Netflix actually went to Blockbuster and said, hey, would you buy us out for $30 million? And Blockbuster thought, nah, ordering videos by mail, that's just got to be a passing fad. Well, of course, who's the billions of dollar company now, and who, last I knew, I think Blockbuster had 1 store out of thousands left in New York or something like that. So, I mean, it just shows that every single organization needs to be able to constantly have an eye on improvement and innovation. And I have been very fortunate to have the kinds of jobs and the kinds of boards that have supported that need in me. Because I lead from probably 60-40 right brain to left brain. Yes, I can do those process things. When I worked at Lenawee County, the entire county budget was on Lotus 123 on my computer, and I managed that budget and I made the changes. Yet I stayed there a year and a half because I wasn't working in my best energy. My best energy is to be a leader, to have vision, to work to bring people together, to motivate groups, to motivate employees, to work to help employees achieve the best as far as their knowledge. Many of the educational programs that I've been able to promote and bring to life in Ottawa County have the benefit of benefiting employees in their personal lives as well as their work life. And so that's very important when you can grow as a person in both spheres. And also, the idea is to improve people so that they're the very best employees for your organization at that time. They can grow with the organization, hopefully be promoted and take greater roles. But also, if they choose to go somewhere else, they're part of that culture that's expanding and growing maybe other parts of the community, other organizations in the community. The other area where I think I'm very well positioned to be Kent County Administrator is I've had a front row seat to county government in West Michigan now for 20 years. So I was a deputy administrator here in a much different role. So I had authority over 5 departments when I worked here, and I was kind of the guy, I think Roger Morgan's nickname for me used to be Swamp Thing, because he said I was the guy we'd send out into the swamp on some of the toughest, nastiest issues the county had to face, and I would emerge from the swamp and we would resolve the issue. So I did take on a lot of the special projects and a lot of those types of things. So I was not the county administrator as I became in Ottawa County. I took a lot of things from Kent County to Ottawa County. I believe there's a number of things I can bring back. And so when I look at West Michigan, I have a real passion for West Michigan acting with one voice. So what if, so Ottawa County has a great head start on DEI issues. So what if Ottawa County actually, resolved DEI? Well, what if the rest of the 1.3 million in West Michigan did not? West Michigan is a place where people don't feel welcome if they're not the same as a cultural norm. I think we need to speak with one voice. I'd love to see a Kent County DEI and an Ottawa County DEI and a Muskegon DEI and an Allegan DEI that were kind of singing from the same choir book and had the same kinds of initiatives and approach so that wherever somebody lands in West Michigan, they're going to feel welcome. And we need that for business, for prosperity, for growth, and just because West Michigan is already a great place with great people in it, but it needs to be a great place for all people. I think that from the perspective of how my brain works, how I am constantly looking to innovate, and yet I do have a strong responsibility and drive and ability to make sure that that left side of the wheel, that operational side of the wheel, does produce excellent results. I think I would be a good candidate, a great candidate for this position. With that, I would be happy to entertain any questions. I'm sure you have questions. I've been in the room doing some work and messing around, so I imagine you have a few questions for me.
Commissioner LeGrand.
Good morning. I want to connect a couple of the dots of your comments yesterday, and also you addressed this a little bit already in your introduction, but you said, among other things, that you feel that we're at a hinge right now, and I really agree that Kent County is at a hinge, and I know that you're really willing to be a change agent, which I think is fantastic. But you did mention yesterday something about, Kent County, or kind of all one family. I think you used the word family. And I just want to, I just want to elaborate on some of those comments you just made, because last summer I was campaigning, and I want Dr. London to know that I was masked and I was keeping my distance. But I did a lot of campaigning, and I talked to a lot of voters. And, there are a lot of people who don't feel part of that family. There are people who feel not included. There are people who feel unwelcome, unwanted. And I want to hear more about what it means to you that everyone feels welcome, because in a family you have a role, and you're welcome, and you're part of it, and you help make decisions. And for the people who are here and are not playing that role right now, I want to know how you plan to bring them in.
I think when you look at the 3 pieces of DEI, we can get a good start on that. So diversity is differences in people and groups. Equity is fairness in access and treatment. And then inclusion is where you work to make people feel belong, but more importantly, people really feel like they belong. And so, and it ties into another area where I think we have to be more intentional about citizen engagement. I mean, quite honestly, for most of our history, if you had a master's degree or doctorate or you had a lot of experience, people would defer to you because you know what you're doing and we elected you and you're a representative or you were hired by our representatives. And so, but now people have a desire to be at the table. And so the key is, how do we make that happen? I mean, how do we reach out and really make people feel part of the process? And so part of it through DEI is actually removing some of those invisible barriers, such that through implicit bias. You know, just a couple quick examples, but you know, one example, I remember there was a study done of Fortune 500 CEOs, and they were 30% more likely to hire a female for their executive staff if you removed references to gender from the cover letter. And so there's a lot of examples, a lot of case studies. You can find them on Google Docs. But I think that part of it is we have to find ways to engage people, whether it's through surveys, through focus groups, through conversation, face-to-face, online, to really find out what people want, what the issues are, and then make sure we have an appropriate response to do our best to make them feel like they belong.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. If you could give me some latitude, I have a series of questions. Just want to start with one of the questions that I asked at the public forum last night, which is, what is the budget of Ottawa County?
I'm really glad that we talked after the forum because I didn't want you to think I didn't know the budget of Ottawa County. So yeah, and I didn't want to do a presidential debate thing and come back and answer the previous question on the next question. So no, our total funds budget is $200 million. It's been as high as 240 when we built the Ottawa County Courthouse in Grand Haven and expanded the Fillmore complex, but it's $200 million.
And as the administrator, it's your job to set that and prepare it for the Board of Commissioners to review, correct?
Yes.
And can you give me an example, and give yourself a moment to think about this one, but if you could give me an example of where you had to choose between one thing you funded and one thing you didn't. I'd like to know your process for how you decided this got funded, but this did not.
Yeah, probably the best example of that would be the Great Recession, because we cut $14 million out of our general fund budget. And what we did is we took the MSU Option Finder system, you know, the clicker system, and we created a program that allowed the commissioners to rank all of our discretionary spending very quickly. So we had questions where we'd go down the list and then go from top to bottom, then from bottom to top, after getting explanations from the stakeholders in providing those services. Sounds like maybe you've done this. I don't know.
No, this would be really great.
And so, well, okay.
I'm definitely interested in hearing more, so please go ahead.
Well, yeah. So then we did the same thing with mandated services, because in Michigan with mandated services, it's not often that the service level itself is mandated. The activity is mandated. But I mean, when I was in South Haven, Van Buren County had an animal control officer that worked 20 hours a week. All the way to Kent County with vehicles on the road, patrolling, that type of thing. And so we cut about 35% out of all of our discretionary spending, and then we also reduced some of the mandated spending by looking at service levels and where we could get by. Or areas that the state was required to pay us to do something and they weren't. We did reduce a couple of those areas as well.
Do you have any experience in space needs studies?
Well, actually, the first one I participated in was right here, and then I brought that to Ottawa County. And fortunately for us, we had just started the space needs study when the pandemic hit, so we haven't finished it. So we're able to kind of adapt and look at what's happening now with the potential for more people to work from home. But we had already started down the road of creating flexible spaces, open space. In fact, we finished the health department during the pandemic, really trying to get more sunlight in, help people's creativity, physical and mental health, and all those things. But I will say that we are taking a new look before we complete the study to really go through every area of the county and figure out where is it that we could actually benefit from having people work from home, and maybe check in once or twice a week in hoteling space or that type of thing. But we had areas of the county that prospered by working at home. I mean, we have record-keeping functions almost across the board, whether you're talking sheriff, clerk register, court records, that actually dramatically improve their production. I don't know if some of those professions might attract more introverted people who are disturbed more maybe by interruptions during the workday. Haven't dug into it that deep, but I do know I don't want to give away the productivity just to have everybody where we can see them. So that will be a focus we have.
And my final question, can you give me the top 2 most innovative projects that you led and launched at Ottawa?
Number 1 has to be Francesca. Francesca is our wayfinding robot. And so if you go out to the Fillmore Complex, it was built in 1998. Well, 93 the jail was built, and then where the sheriff's office and elected officials and the board, that complex was built in 1998. There's a big entryway, and it was always intended that there would be staff in that entryway to greet people, to direct people, that type of thing. County never hired the staff. We put signage up, many iterations of signage, but people walk into the space and they look here and here, the signs, and they look dumbfounded. And they're just in a different space to them. And so my customer service team recommended that we staff that area, which would take a position and a half to make sure that you cover all the hours year-round. And so I thought that I'd love to see if there was a way to do it differently and save that money. It's a tight time to find talent to begin with, and it was a position cost that we hadn't had before. And so for about a year, we researched the possibility of putting artificial intelligence out there. And we did end up working with a company in Connecticut to develop Francesca. So Francesca cost the county net $66,000 the first year. The cost for the position and a half in benefits would have been $85,000. And the ongoing cost to maintain and improve Francesca is $11,000 a year. So it allowed us to solve a problem, I think, in a very creative way without incurring those extra costs and just looking at it the way that we always had. I think that the other thing that we just finished to get, I don't know if it's the most innovative thing, but it kind of supports our innovation program. So one of the things I do in my career, just because of how my head works, is I love to dig into these things that people talk about, but they can't really wrap their arms around in the government space. Things like AI or robotics or innovation. What does innovation mean? Well, we've thought a lot about it in Ottawa County, and we actually worked with a consultant to create a playbook. There's 157 plays in it. What are plays? It's different ways to think about how to solve a problem, either as a team or an individual. And we just had our board strategic planning session in the innovation room, which is a space that has far different kind of furniture than you'll find in government offices. It's all mobile, move it around, whiteboards, places to work. And we also actually have a backwards bike in there too. So if you want to have some fun, later today when you're relaxing from all this process you've been through, Google backwards bike. And there's a guy that developed a backwards bike to show an example of how our brains get grooved into doing things a certain way. So we developed this backwards bike, and when you turn the steering wheel the way it should go, the bike goes the other way. And it took him 6 months to learn how to ride that bike, and then he couldn't ride a regular bike. Well, his son, who was 5 years old, it only took him 3 weeks to learn how to ride the bike. And so we try to use props like that to help teams get unstuck. So they use a room, because government, we kind of get how to solve. To me, one of the biggest issues in management, public, private, nonprofit, is technical versus adaptive thinking. In government, because we tend to attract and need that left brain energy, which is so important, we tend to look at all problems through a technical lens. Well, increasingly, with the complexity of government and the problems that are bubbling up for us to deal with, we need to think of those problems as adaptive. And it's a different kind of thinking, and so we need to learn how to think differently to solve problems in a different fashion. And that's, and that's what we intend to do with the innovation program, is make sure that the organization has a balanced brain. There's a high value and need for that technical problem solving. But with technical problem solving, it's a resource thing. You need more money, you need a different policy. It's pretty easy to figure out. With the adaptive piece, you don't know what the answer is. And you have to engage a different kind of teamwork and a different kind of thinking in order to get to that answer.
Thank you.
One quick example.
Good.
You know, I recently lost weight about 1.5 years ago. So if you have high blood pressure, the technical answer is to go on medicine. You can solve your high blood pressure problem in a way. You can solve it right away by going on medicine. However, the true answer is to lose weight, exercise, eat right. That's adaptive. That's not a technical solution. And so there's both sides of that, you know, to look at when you're looking at a problem.
Commissioner Morgan. From virtual world, Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Morgan, you may.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
There you are. Thank you. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, good morning, Al. I have a question. Yeah, I certainly like to run plays, and usually I have to read a key. You used to have to read a key in that, but I know you like challenges, and over the years working with you, you really, you know, just raised the occasion with challenges. What are your top 3 challenges in county government, specifically if in your leadership in Kent County?
I think let me see, 3, maybe not in rank order, because they're all, I'm not sure how I'd rank them right now. I think one of the major challenges is to put together a process for convening groups, the necessary people to attack the issues of the day. You know, we heard last night at the public forum that, you know, housing, transportation, issues of the day, and it may not be the county government itself that creates a transportation system and runs it throughout the county. I find that highly unlikely, but the county government needs to be that convening force that brings people together, that can solve the problem together. And I think that that is an area that can be improved, and that's an area that I can have an impact in. I think that's a major area. I think, too, just organizational improvement, making sure we have an innovative culture, and I really have a passion for organizational culture, and it's a term, again, that's used a lot. It's bandied around a lot. What does it really mean? Well, what it means is that the culture has the kinds of characteristics that we want it to have. We want it to be innovative. We want it to be diverse. We want it to be welcoming. We want it to be efficient, effective, proficient. All these characteristics we want, and then we evaluate it, and we move on it, and we move to improve those things. Those are, I think, 2 big areas. But the one that I've been thinking about a lot, even before this process came up, and I'm still kind of struggling, but I know we'll get somewhere. But just the best way to do true citizen engagement for a county government. It's actually quite a bit easier for a city. My city in South Haven was 3.5 square miles. And there was a lot of understanding of what the city did, and a lot of, it was just a lot easier to engage the public on a matter. Where in county government, with so many different pieces, with so many different authority sources, just even, you know, I think I mentioned in a previous interview that I've always thought county government in Michigan was the best kept secret in government because people relate to us the least. I mean, you know what your cities and townships do. You're right there seeing it every day on the streets, and the state and federal government get all the news and the headlines and the attention. And here's county government, which is really quite substantial when you look at our budget and our resources and everything we do for people. Yet we directly impact less of a population maybe in relation to how a city impacts their population with physical day-to-day services. So I think how to engage the public, how to make people feel they belong, I think is also one of those top 3.
Any follow-up, Commissioner Morgan? Guess not. Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Al.
Morning.
So I'm going to ask you to go out on a tightrope a little bit here.
Okay.
And I think one of our top priorities was courage. So keep that in mind. I thought about ways to ask this question. One was just going to be a simple insult us. But I thought maybe that wouldn't be the most Michigan nice thing to do. So I'll try to put it a little bit more of a polish on it.
Again, your true self-awareness.
So you've called yourself a change agent. Can you talk to me in as much specifics as you're willing to go, to maybe take a little bit more of Commissioner Jones' questions? What opportunities do you see for Kent specifically? Where are the issues that we need to change? And please don't answer robots.
Yeah. Okay, no robots.
Okay.
You know, when I hired Erica Rosebrook to be the management analyst that answered to me here, she actually insulted me in front of the interview committee, and I hired her, and she worked for me here and Ottawa County, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. No, I think so. You know, as I've said, West Michigan's a 1.3 million small town, and I think that I interact with many of you. I interact with many other people in West Michigan, and I've had a huge number of conversations about where's Kent County at, what do you think? Do you think I could make a difference here? And as I've talked to people, I think that there's a sense that Kent County could be more collaborative, and there's a sense that Kent County could be more of a leader. My own personal opinion is that Kent County should be certainly the lead county in West Michigan and the state, simply because of the resources and the people that are here. And I think that Kent County has taken a bit of a back seat in that regard. I also believe that the internal organization could use some improvement based on those conversations.
Okay, thanks, Al.
Commissioner Ponstein.
Welcome to Kent County, Al. So I've got the privilege where I can pretty much say I can walk to Ottawa County on any given day. And over my tenure in office, I've represented people that lived in Ottawa County and Kent County. And when I was in the city of Granville, we worked closely with Ottawa County, opened up our wastewater treatment plant for the citizens of Ottawa. We hear it all the time, and you just touched on it, is that, we do things different here, we work with each other. But when I hear that collaboration, I guess my question to you is, does that really exist? And are we doing everything together, or are we all still, were these individual counties? They've got unique identities, which make counties great too, but there are some serious issues, big problems out there. And, I'm not buying into it that we are a regional working mindset that are trying to solve things.
I would agree. I think that counties collaborate when we're forced to. Like with the job training or the mental health, or the state says you will band together in this group and then we collaborate. But I think there can be other opportunities. One example, so when we decided to move forward with DEI, it was going to cost me $1.1 million over 5 years for 2 full-time positions to lead that effort. So instead of going to the board and asking for $1.1 million, I first went to the Grand Haven and Holland Foundations and got $300,000 in funding. And then I went to the private sector and got another $210,000 in funding. And then I went to the board and said, this is a community need. The private sector needs this. The foundations believe we need this. And I've been able to get them invest and pay 45% of the cost of providing these positions for the first 5 years. So that's an example of tri-sector collaboration and just a mindset of saying, well, I'm not just going to take this to the board and ask for the whole thing. I need to make it a community thing, both in terms of the thought process and the funds to fund it. And I've had that mindset. I remember one time when Kent was hiring a fiscal services director, I called Daryl and I said, is there any chance we could share fiscal services directors? I mean, do we need one in each place? And yes, you do. But I mean, at least, again, having the mindset and the thought process to say, let's at least ask the question. And maybe it won't work out, but maybe it will. But we know for sure it won't work out if we don't even bother asking the question.
Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I want to thank you for being one of our finalists here today. It's just been great listening to all three of you over the last 3 days. As we look, it was a question I asked you and other candidates yesterday, and I thought you gave us the best answer for it, but I'd like to delve a little deeper into it. I talked about the fiscal year starting for us October 1st, and that our great administrator that's about to retire and our physical service director, Jeff Dodd, Wayman Britt and Jeff Dodd have probably already started some work and recommendations for our annual budget. And I know a lot of fingerprints will be on the annual budget, but because we're hiring you, and it's a very highly paid position, you know, I want to know what you would bring to the table when it comes to recommendations with our CIP fund and our general fund. And have you looked at anything in Kent County yet that's already giving you some direction on how you would like to look into our budget, preparing our annual budget and other reports?
Sure. Yeah, I
or
think,
recommendations?
Yeah, and I think that, so again, you have the part of the budget that is more static and that you always need to take a look at to see if things can be improved, those processes. But the more dynamic part are all the things that you want to accomplish as a board that's not part of that operating cycle that happens day in and day out. You're going to pay accountants regardless of what you do with the strategic plan. But you're going to do some different things because of the strategic plan. As I read through the strategic plan, I'm very comfortable with everything in the plan. And I thought the one piece I don't see, maybe it exists, but typically I would see it right in the plan, would be all of those actual detailed strategies, outcomes, and who's assigned to carry those out, and what is the date when they're due. I think that's a really important piece. And so that's why I would propose facilitating a session with the Board of Commissioners within the first 30 days that I would be in office in order to help narrow down that strategic plan into something tangible. And because I don't like the kind of plan, I mean, I like the things in the plan, but I don't like that plan that has these big objectives or goals, and then I pick and choose what we're going to accomplish that year and bring it to you as a done deal. I would much rather have you go through a process as a group and let the staff know what your emphasis is, and then let us put together a budget to do that. So the budget process is well underway. I'm over half over. But I think that at least I would like to put that marker in the sand and have that session and see what your priorities are, match them up where we're at, and see if we need to make any changes before it comes to you for final approval.
Thank you. 2 last questions. When it comes to our American freedoms, principles, and values, those have been protected and secured by our veterans. In Kent County, it's been reported that we have ended homelessness for veterans, which is great. Are there anything that you're doing with veterans in Ottawa County, or any things that you've had that might be on your bucket list to help veterans, and maybe some different issues they may be facing that you've seen in your experience that you might want to bring to Kent County, or at least bring up for discussion?
Yeah, actually, that's a part that I'm very passionate about. My son was in the U.S. Army for 5 years and a sergeant in the infantry, and did 2 tours in Afghanistan. So my wife lived through those 2, 3, 4-week periods where he'd be on a mission and we didn't hear anything, and you wonder what's going on, and then he comes back, and helping him, you know, get back into society. It's given me a front row seat, not only to the awesome people that are in our military, and they're motivated to do great things for their country. I mean, it's just a cross-cut of society that it just endears me. Ottawa County has a little bit different method of providing services, but we actually are very effective in doing so. And as a county government, I've worked very hard with HR to make sure that we're not putting up barriers to hire veterans, because veterans have a whole different skill set that doesn't match up well on the resumes like we look at them. And there's actually a method they've come up with that will translate a veteran service, leadership, skills they've learned into more of how we look at resumes. And that's something that you know, we're looking at too, is just to make sure that there are no barriers to county employment. And then also, we have methods for those who are in the Guard and need to go serve, so they keep their county benefits while they're serving and those kinds of things. But no, that's an area of our population that deserves the very best, and we need to strive to do that, and we do that in Ottawa County.
Thank you very much. My last question, we've asked each candidate about diversity, and it came up also about opportunities versus outcomes. I believe that equitable opportunities must exist so everybody's on an equal playing field, but when it comes time to find out how good we're doing that, the measurement is the equitable outcomes. So you just want to talk about some of the equitable outcomes you were able to achieve as administrator and a county administrator in Ottawa, and your history on that. Just some briefing on that, and would you intend to continue that or take it to the next level here in Kent County with as much influence that you can, because this is a team situation, but as a county administrator, your part in that?
Yeah, and I would say my experience is probably weighted a little more on the opportunity side, but there is some experience also with outcomes. I mean, we've done a substantial amount of work in our health department to ensure equitable outcomes as far as the services that we provide and the services that people are accessing and benefiting from in that regard. Also in the Parks Department, we've worked, actually brought in the West Michigan Hispanic Center to help us go through a process, actually brought a number of our tools together. We used a persona tool to develop personas of the different type of Hispanic folks that we hope to draw into a full use and enjoyment of all of our park services, and then changed our marketing program to reflect that. And so this is a work in art. It's part of our DEI program. It's part of making sure that our policies, procedures, and programs and services don't somehow, from an implicit bias standpoint or other standpoint, make it more difficult for others to have the same outcomes as far as use, enjoyment, benefit, better health, as anyone else in the population.
Any other questions for Al? Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I've been reticent to engage in questions because I've had plenty of opportunity to question you and the other candidates, but I thought this issue might have come up earlier, but haven't heard it yet. At the end of the day, counties provide services principally to our constituents, the people that live here. Could you talk a bit about your philosophy on service to constituents and what you would propose to do about that?
Yeah, I think that we have mandated services in county government. We have discretionary services, and then we developed another category at Ottawa County, necessary services. So it's actually not mandated that you have computers on your desk. You could have yellow pads and pens, and it's also not it's not mandated some of the equipment that the Sheriff's Department has or any other office in the county has, but they're necessary and necessary to carry out mandated or discretionary services. So I think that, to me, high quality, continuous improvement, always looking to make services not only better and as cost effective as possible, but it's so important to make sure that they're accessible to all on an equal basis. I think that it's important to measure everything. So everything we do, all the innovations we did, Priority Health has called the Ottawa County Health Plan the best plan in their book of business. We gutted it in 2010. We went to a high deductible HSA, and we actually cut $10 million out of the cost of that plan over a couple years, and even now we're among the lowest cost plans for a Cadillac plan in the state. And so that was an attempt to improve the model, the cost model. You know, what can we do to reduce the amount that we pay for benefits as a total percentage of salary, but at the same time maintain a great health plan for our employees? And we did certainly achieve that. And so I think it's really not only having an eye at everything we do and how do we make it better, but also measuring that through our own metrics and dashboards and that type of thing, but also asking the citizens. I mean, we have a 75 to 80 question survey the citizens do every other year. We hire Epic MRA to do that. It's statistically significant. And we ask the citizens, how are we doing? A last report we got, we're 78 or 80%, which the pollsters tell me I shouldn't hope too much to go above that because we're government. And you typically, if you get 80% in government, you're doing pretty darn good, so.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I also have a series of questions, if you'll permit me. My first, and you've spoken to this with other questions, but you know, one of the key parts of this board, or key aspects of this board, is we're a very active group of commissioners who want to have an integrated role in pretty much every step of policymaking. Obviously, it's not our job to tell you what pencils to purchase, but we want to take an active role in policymaking beyond the early, broad strategic plan and approving what comes to us. And could you speak to how you intend to operationalize that in not just the budget process, but in the other methods that the other roles that we take? And you mentioned that in this current budget, obviously things are already set in motion, and you'd like to at least start that process now. I certainly see an opportunity to think of that with how we plan to distribute those federal funds that are coming in through the rescue plan. So can you speak to how you want to operationalize board participation in methods other than the budget, and how you plan to involve the board in the process for planning out the distribution of federal funds to the rescue plan?
Oh, sure. In general, I think, especially in a major change, you need to take that change and that policy to the committee for input many times, I think, before it's done. You may have commissioners participating in a subcommittee that helps develop that. I mean, there may be some things that take a certain expertise that one of you have, and you don't want 19 people all working on the same thing at the same time. So part of it's situational. But I think that certainly the mindset would be to involve commissioners in the development of these things. For the ARP money, I know you had a process set up with a committee for the earlier money. What we've set up in Ottawa is 5 buckets. We've got a bucket for the county operational needs due to COVID, revenue expenditure, things that maybe weren't funded. We have a bucket for county capital needs that could be funded with COVID. And then 3 community buckets, a human need bucket, a business need, and then also community capital need, which could be things like broadband or water, sewer. So that I would recommend a similar approach. And then what we've done is set up a team of about 20 people representing different parts of the community that can advise us on, it's areas that intersect with parts of the act that have money for certain things and the people who are expert in the need. So, like the foundations. I sat on a foundation subcommittee for Grand Haven that distributed millions of dollars of aid for organizations that needed assistance during COVID. They know what those organizational needs are. Nonprofit, economic development, but just tapping people who are experts in the sector, who have either already distributed funds, who know that documented unmet need, and can also help use the money in a transformational way. So funding the kinds of things that will play out in the future and grow bigger in the future would also be a focus.
Thank you. And my final question, I appreciated your comments and sharing the story of Ottawa Housing Next. Certainly is a success story in what you've developed. And what my follow-up to that question from yesterday, many of the key successes that Ottawa Housing Next has done, while not in the same way, has been done here in Kent in some degree. The foundational sides, or that kind of base level of aligning the philanthropic community, engaging with private sector partners, building capacity of developers. A lot of that has now been done and has been done for quite some time. What would you say are those next steps in trying to achieve an affordable housing strategy that's regional and also attacks or targets or prioritizes all price points, middle, low, and high income?
Sure. Well, I think if I look at a difference, I would say that it's important to have a group, and it wouldn't necessarily be the county convening it all the time, but one of the members. So you need the key players that could make this happen, whether it's foundations, nonprofits, county government, business, others at the table to come up with a strategy. We have focused on affordable housing for those who have jobs at this point. That's at the niche that we are trying to attack because we're trying to meet the gaps that are preventing our employers from hiring people. And one of those is affordable housing. DEI is another one. There's a whole number of those. But I think it's important to have a group that can speak to not only the resources. What we did is we looked at what is the gap between what a developer can get for selling homes for $500,000, which is what a lot of homes are being built for in Ottawa County right now, and affordable housing. And it turns out that gap is 35%. So then you need to know what programs are there at the state level, federal level. How can we work to narrow that gap so that a developer is willing to build that housing? And then for other cases, maybe if it might be subsidized housing, depending on the need. So it really takes a study of each one of those components and then having the right people at the table that can bring the resources to bear to do it. And we have that kind of group now where there's probably 12 different organizations, nonprofit, public, private, and it's kind of a core group of leadership that will tackle those issues, come together. And so I would envision something like that. I'm not stuck on numbers or anything, but certainly the kinds of partners that need to be at the table to tackle those kinds of issues.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very pleased to have 3 good candidates in front of us in this whole process. And if I were to take out the things that aren't directly applicable to the administrator role, in my judgment, yours probably has the most things left in it that are directly applicable. There is one area of deep concern that I have that I'm hoping you can help address for me, and that goes back to last fall in October, I believe. I was made aware, of some of the differences in handling of COVID-related policies and procedures between Kent and Ottawa. Specifically, I was talking to one of my constituents, a Byron Center mom that had kids in a religious school in Ottawa County that a day or two before had been closed down at like 10 p.m., and so her kids were kind of caught in this dispute where suddenly her kids couldn't access, books and instruments and, to even do some of those things to continue at home. And so that was the beginning of some awareness of, some differences in, how things were being approached and handled. And it seems to me, and maybe my judgment's off on this, but that, some of those issues of, challenging issues of, public health versus personal rights and the right balance and tension there, like we had those same issues in Kent County. Why was Ottawa County so much more adversarial in its approach?
I can't, actually, first, let me say, that is a truly tough question. But Ottawa County follows the rule of law. And we worked with the school that you're referring to for 6 weeks. There was a lot of communication back and forth. And Ottawa County never took action on anyone that we didn't get a complaint on. So the way the law works, if you actually get a complaint about something that's required by the state for the county to do, we're required to respond. And even when we responded, we had a whole lot of correspondence that went back and forth between us and the school, and they openly defied the masking and the requirements that the law had. And so and also we had a number of contacts from parents and teachers that were concerned about how the school was implementing policy. We had people from the school calling the health department and saying, we're praying for you. And keep it up, keep doing what you're doing. And then we were sued by the school in both federal district court and the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Cincinnati, and we won both those cases. And so I think we proved, per the rule of law, that we were doing it right, and also that we went above and beyond to try to get compliance, but we had a whole number of complaints from people within the school, and so we had to act.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. It's been enjoyable meeting you again,
Yes.
having started to know you way back in the early 2000s.
Zoo
before you-
issues, as I recall.
Zoo issues. I'm
Yeah.
wearing my elephant jacket, by the way, in honor of those days, in remembrance of them. And when you first brought me into this third floor of the administration building to talk about the zoo issues. But to use Chair Bolter's favorite expression, I would like to drill down
Okay?
on, and ask you, how you have worked to empower your county board of commissioners over the years, and how will you help to, what will you do with us to help us become better commissioners?
I think the primary way is how you view information. And some people view information as power, so they hoard it, and they figure if they have the power, somebody else doesn't. And certainly when I walked into Ottawa County, that had been the attitude of the administration, and there was a click on the board. It was a 6-5 board. And I share information freely to everybody. And I think that's very empowering because my goal is that you're never caught surprised by something that happens in the media, by something that's happening with county government that you don't know about. And I have a couple different methods of doing that. And so I think how information is shared. Also, people who know me will say, I'm proud of the accomplishments in my career and of the governments that I serve, but I'm not arrogant. And I don't view this position as mine. I'm a steward of this position. It's my job to do the very best that I can as county administrator until the day when I'm done. And my goal is to leave it better for that next administrator who comes in. And I think yeah. That's it.
Any other questions for Al today? Commissioner Jones.
Thank you for letting me have a second time up. My question is on communication. There have been a number of different communication styles that I've experienced. Daryl DeLabio was very set on if we had any questions, we go to him. We do not go to any of the department heads. He was the one who would take our question. He's the one who would respond back. With Wayman, it's been a bit of a hybrid in my experience. I've gone to Wayman with questions. He's come back with answers. Sometimes I've asked a question to a department head, copied in Wayman, and got the answers. What do you foresee as the communication process between 19 commissioners and when we have questions that need responses that could either be information you have, information department heads, or would you still have to think about this before you answer? I'm just curious what your approach would be if you're selected.
I really don't need to think about that one at all because you will kill me if I have to have 19 of you go through me with every question you have. That would be misery. No, I would expect a free flow of communication between commissioners and department heads when it comes to asking questions and getting information. But anytime you want a department head to do something, that has to go through me. I mean, I couldn't have a situation where my staff is wondering which of their 20 bosses they have to listen to in any given day. So that's why any direction, any request to do something needs to go through me. But anytime you want information to find out what's happening, get a report, see what's going on, yeah, call the department head by all means.
Any other questions for Al? I have a couple. Just a couple. Oh, well, one question and then a couple comments, Al. Obviously, you are our only employee for the board. You are the manager over all the rest of the employees. So if we have a problem, we have to go to you. And obviously, our board changes. You get a different set of executive committee members depending on the rise and fall of the election. So I've obviously been in a unique experience. I think we've only had four 4 or 5 female chairs in Kent County. Have you ever had to report to a female or anyone other than your own gender? And if you can remember a time, how did it go?
Other than females on the city councils and boards, no, I have not. Well, okay. I did work at the Rendezvous Restaurant in Grand Haven for my last year of high school and my years of college, and the kitchen, I reported to the kitchen manager. I was a cook,
Okay.
and she was a female.
Okay,
So
great. And then just to kind of wrap up, just to give my own perspective, you know, the search committee, we put in probably 20 to 30 hours on this. We have seen all of these candidates in multiple different facets. We've seen them, you know, do really well, maybe not do as well some days or other days. But for me, and kind of my process was to create a positive and a negative list for each candidate, and then I would write down things that I liked or didn't like. I will just say that, Al, your positive list was the longest, and I just wanted to share a couple of things that really stuck out to me, and then I want you to tease out the last one. The first was, you know, employee surveys and citizen surveys. I thought that was great. Not afraid to hear negative information. You don't want to hire a yes person or yes people. You want to survey the employees. You want to operationalize goals. You want to do a future study of what we could do and what we could be. I think that's great. You had a quote, "We're stronger together than individually," which I thought was amazing. I quoted you, "I want 19 commissioners to be successful." I thought that was great. One that I thought really ties into, hit me personally, I'm not from West Michigan, and you said, "I want the community and everyone in it to have a feeling of belonging." And I think that was really, just really, really struck me. But then lastly, you said, "I want everyone who comes to our government to be startled and amazed." And I want you to tease that out a little bit.
Sure.
How will you startle and amaze our constituents?
Well, after we implemented our customer service initiative, I'll just describe some of the outcomes. We have had more than 20 deputies cited by citizens, or actually promoted by citizens for quarterly customer service excellence awards. And in each, I mean, these are citizens that just got a ticket, and they go to our website, find the form, and nominate the deputy that just gave them a ticket. That sounds ridiculous, right? But it actually happens. And usually, and I remember one individual said, "You know, I was having an awful day, and then I got this $150 ticket. And the rest of my day was great because of how the person treated me. They didn't treat me like a criminal. They didn't treat me like I screwed it up. They treated me like a great person that maybe made a bad decision to drive too fast at that time." Another example, the owner of Russ's Restaurants called me one day and said, you have the worst restaurant inspection in West Michigan." And after we did the customer service initiative, and now we get about 15 nominations per quarter for our restaurant inspection division in the health department. And instead of fearing their visits and trying to avoid them, the restaurants see them as coaches. They call them when they don't need to. They look forward to their visits. Our inspectors have worked with them till 10 p.m. to help them get something done. I mean, it's just a total change around in attitude. We've had another, you look at all the bad news about race relations and cops and people of color and all that. Well, we had a situation where one of our officers saw a car stopped along the road. There was an African-American family in there, and they had run out of gas. So he ran to the gas station, bought a can, filled it up, put that in the car, followed them to the gas station, paid $40 out of his own pocket to fill the car, and then the only reason we knew about it was they actually filmed that and ended up on Channel 8 News. And so, I mean, people will do extraordinary things as long as you permit them to. And so I think I think when people expect the worst when they walk into government, red tape. This is going to be a hassle. You can just see it in their faces. Probably one reason why they walk into Fillmore and look around and don't know where they're going. And so when people are treated with respect, we preach the golden rule. When you actually live that out, people are pleasantly surprised. So I think that's startling and amazing when you can provide great customer service in local government.
Thank you, Al. I think we're ready for a break. But I appreciate all of your time and all of your willingness to come run through the gauntlet these several months. And have a great day. Thank you.
All right,
for
thank
being
you
here.
very much.
On our agenda, we are at a recess point. Are we ready to recess? I think lunch is here, so.
Yes.
All right, do we need a? Are you doing a time? Yeah, let's is a half an hour adequate? Let's recess until noon, and we'll be back. Thank you. All those in favor of recessing till noon, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, we are recessed until noon. Okay, we have everyone here in their seats. Roger and Tom, are you back?
I'm here. Roger's here.
Commissioner Antor? I just love virtual. I am so glad this month is coming to an end with the virtual option.
I'm here too, Chair. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you. I don't need to do anything here. Okay, we are back. Welcome back, everyone. We've all been fortified with lunch, and we are on to item 7 of our agenda today, the consent agenda, and I'll call on Commissioner Womack.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Womack, support by Commissioner Jones. Questions or comments on the consent agenda? Commissioner Kallman.
I hope the chair will allow me a comment that's not exactly related to the
Sure,
consent
sure.
agenda. So, awkwardly, I'm not able to stay any longer. Before this was scheduled, at this important meeting, I was scheduled in my day job to give a 1 o'clock presentation to about 130 people. So I need to head out to the great district of Cascade Township here. So I apologize for not being able to stay here, but got to head off for that. So
All right.
thank you all for this process. I think it's been great.
Okay, thank you for telling my constituents hi as you head over that way. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, any other questions or comments on the consent agenda today? Seeing none, Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
On the consent agenda, Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Antor,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Coleman, Brevi,
Yes.
Deal,
Yes.
Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Bukowski, Commissioner Bukowski, Commissioner Womack,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
and Chair Bolger.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the consent agenda passes.
thank you. We are on to 8A of the agenda, and I'll call on Commissioner Steck for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move approval of Resolution 6/24/2156, which calls for the appointment of the Kent County Board of Commissioners Chair, Mandy Bolter, to the Kent County Grand Rapids Convention Arena Authority Board to fill that unexpired term ending December 31, 2022.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Steck, support by Commissioner Womack. Questions or comments on the resolution? I will be abstaining. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
On the Resolution 56, Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Antor,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck,
Yes.
Commissioner Ponstein,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Coleman, Brevi,
Yes.
Deal,
Yes.
Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Bukowski, Commissioner Womack,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Abstain.
Madam Chair, you have 16 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes.
Thank you. We're on to 8B of the agenda, and I'll call on Commissioner Brevy.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I move Resolution 6/24/2157, authorize the issuance of Troy with Mosher and Farnham Drainage District Bonds, Series 2021, from the Drain Commission Office.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Brevy, support by Commissioner Green. Questions or comments on this resolution? I believe Drain Commissioner Yonker is joining us virtually if we do have questions. Concerns, comments? All right, seeing none, let's call the roll.
Adoption of Resolution 57, Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Antor,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman, Commissioner Coleman, Commissioner Brevy,
Yes.
Thiel,
Yes.
Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Bukowski, Commissioner Bukowski, Commissioner Womack,
Yes.
Commissioner Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes,
Madam Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The resolution passes.
thank you. We are on to 8C of the agenda, and I'll call on Commissioner Brevy.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I move Resolution 58 of today's date, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, SARS-CoV-2 Epidemiology, Wastewater Evaluation and Reporting, also known as the Sewer Network, from the Health Department.
Moved by Commissioner Brevy,
Support.
support by Commissioner Sparks. Questions or comments on this resolution? Commissioner McLeod.
I will be abstaining from this as the grant is given to Grand Valley State University, which is my day job employer.
If you don't want to use that mic, just yell next time. Any other questions or comments today on this resolution? Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Just brief comment that I really want to commend the Health Department's continued and expanded work to provide this vital service so that we can tackle the tail end of this pandemic in a smart way and hopefully use this as a model in future public health emergencies, and just very thankful for this collaboration. And if anything, I think I saw in an email that some of our friends, in fact, Hope College, I think, one of the counties that we've been talking about a lot recently, Ottawa just secured even more money from this grant. So I think this is, again, really a great program that we should continue to expand the most we can.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
On the passage of Resolution 58, Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Antor,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman, Commissioner Brevy,
Yes.
Thiel,
Yes.
Sparks, McLeod,
Abstain.
Hennessy,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Bukowski, Womack,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 17 yeas, 1 abstention, 0 nays. Motion passes.
Thank you. We are on to 8D of our agenda, now calling Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I would like to move Resolution 59 of today's date, Department of Energy Weatherization Assistant Program Grant with Kent County Community Action.
Moved by Commissioner Womack, support by Commissioner Sparks. Questions or comments on Resolution 59 today? Seeing none, please call the roll.
On the passage of Resolution 59, Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Antor,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman, Brevy,
Yes.
Thiel,
Yes.
Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Bukowski, Womack,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes.
Thank you. We are under Resolution 8E of the agenda. Steve Warren has sat through almost 3.5 hours of a board meeting. I don't know if he has any comments he wants to say, but I will call on Commissioner Brevy for the motion.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I move Resolution 60 of today's date, Facility Construction and Site Improvement Bonds, Series 2021, from the Road Commission.
Moved by Commissioner Brevy, support by Commissioner
Support.
Support by Morgan.
Morgan. Questions or comments on this motion? No questions or, I'm sorry you were here all day, but glad you're available. All right, please call the roll.
On the adoption of Resolution 60, Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Antor,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck,
Yes.
Commissioner Ponstein,
Yes.
Burrow.
Yes.
Coleman, Brevy,
Yes.
Thiel,
Yes.
Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy, LeGrand,
Yes.
Bukowski, Womack,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes,
Madam Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The resolution passes.
thanks. We are on to our last resolution of the day, 8F, and I will call on Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Before I make a motion, I might be allowed a few comments.
Yes, we've told him to not, he's not paid by the word, so we'll see.
I'm not paid at all.
God help us all.
Yeah, thank you for that
Yes,
clarification.
it's just,
So
be
this has
clear.
been a long process for us as a board, going back to last October, and I'm proud to have been part of the search committee that has worked so diligently, an effort that I think has been thorough, exhaustive, and at the end of the day, IDACERT produced 3 very highly qualified candidates for us to consider. Each of these candidates brought a unique set of skills, competencies, inspirations, visions to the table. And it is not difficult to see any one of them being an asset to this community and to this county. As fiduciaries of our vision, however, we're called upon to make a decision, and that is to identify that individual that we believe most likely to be able to carry us forward in achieving the vision we've set for ourselves. And while that is not a difficult, or that is a difficult question, that is a difficult equation to balance, in my judgment, Mr. Vanderberg brings the depth of experience, the knowledge, the skills, and the proven competencies to best advance that vision for us. So I am pleased today to make the motion 6/24/21/61, which is before you with blanks, to be filled in with the name of Mr. Al Vanderberg, specifically a resolution that would offer the position of Kent County Administrator Controller to Mr. Al Vanderberg, subject to satisfactory background reference checks results, and further to authorize the negotiation of an employment agreement with Mr. Vanderberg and present the final employment agreement first to the Executive Committee of the Board of Commissioners for review and comment, and subsequently to the Board of Commissioners for its approval.
moved by Commissioner Steck, support by Commissioner
Second.
Skaggs. Any questions or comments, or we can wait for miscellaneous? Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I will be voting for this resolution. I think Commissioner Steck aptly noted the excellence of these candidates, and very rarely, we've had tough decisions before this board before, but it's almost always where every decision has a drawback, and you don't really like every decision you're given. Very rarely do you have a tough decision where you like all of them, and that is what we had here today. And when I think about the qualities that we wanted in an administrator, someone who's creative, someone who's a visionary, someone who's courageous to be that visionary, collaborative with partners and with us, while also possessing technical experience and a hunger to grow. All 3 of them had it in one way or another. Mr. Stevens certainly shared with us a vision that inspired me and had the courage to show us that vision, and certainly saw him as a valuable candidate. Similarly, Dr. Adam London has demonstrated throughout this year that he has these qualities to also lead. And I said it before, and I will say it again. I truly believe that his leadership over the last year saved lives. And if we don't find different ways to tap his talents that he used to fix and help resolve the messes caused by the pandemic, and continue to tap into those talents to fix the messes left by the pandemic, we will be doing our county a disservice. But in the end, given all of the needs that this county requires and the vast technical experience, yet the hunger to grow and the courage to have a bold vision, Al Vandenberg clearly is a strong candidate. And I am excited about this decision, and only hope that we can glean the strengths that these other candidates provided so that we can make a strong county for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments today? Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. So, I don't want to add too much more to what Commissioner Wooden said other than to echo it. And I know that they've been thanked, but I just really want to thank the entire search team for all the work that they did. Birgit, Dante, Mike, Sam, Commissioner Steck, and Hennessy, and of course, Chair Bolter. It was a long process. And I think they ought to be applauded. As Commissioner Wooden said, we had 3 strong candidates, all who were ready to lead this county. And we had those candidates in large part because of this search team. So thank you very much. And of course, to our search firm, to Korn Ferry. I think we all see from the documents that we got from Korn Ferry after our survey that we were all looking for someone who had a strategic mindset, could collaborate with constituents and stakeholders, and especially this board, was driven for results and really engaged in the community. Clearly, Kalfani Stevens had those, an absolute change agent, innovative, a team builder, and courageous. And of course, a history major from the University of Michigan, so what's there not to like? I called several people who had worked with Kalfani. They all gave him glowing recommendations. I am positive that we have not heard the last of Kalfani Stevens, and hopeful that we haven't. Adam London, again, as Commissioner Wooden said, is a hero of this county. There are people alive right now because of Adam London. And this entire county owes him respect and appreciation. And I think that's probably, I think if we polled our constituents, Adam London might be, one of the most beloved people in this county. Al Vandenberg is doing this exact same job. And I agree with Commissioner Steck that the best way to move our shared vision of this board and our countywide electeds is with Al Vandenberg as our county administrator. Certainly impressed by all of his work from community mental health to parks and economic development. He's a proven leader and someone who has all of the characteristics that we were looking for. So proud to second the motion and vote for it.
Any other commissioner comments today? Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to address those that may be watching and wonder why we did not choose the African American. We talked about diversity. We talked about what diversity is. And right now, we are looking for someone who can carry us to that next level. And just because the person happens to be white does not mean that they cannot do that job. Al has a lot of experience. Mr. Vandenberg has a ton of experience. As you said, Commissioner Skaggs, I hope we have not seen the last of Mr. Stevens. He's a very bright young man. However, the budget that he has managed before, I believe, falls very short to what we need right now. So we did our best. This commission believes in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we will be doing our best to hold this person accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments today? Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I would also like to thank the search committee for doing such a good job of bringing us 3 excellent candidates. Each candidate in their interview left us food for thought. Each one left us something that may help craft our vision in the future. Kalani Stevens, just to come to Kent County and participate in this embrace this community, this county, take a look at it and see some things that could help take us to the next level. And I say that tongue in cheek because we do need to go to a next level, but in so many ways, Kent County is a leader in Michigan. There's just so many great things that have happened in Kent County, and that's an excellent transition into talking about Adam London, the great things he's done with the health department and all of our department heads and the things they've done. But with the COVID crisis, putting that right in the lap of our health department, our Kent County commissioners and their decisions with the federal funds that were coming through, Adam London is a hero that's going to be remembered. And I'm sure this this may be a time he stepped out on faith and took a shot at the highest position in Kent County. I just hope it won't be his last time taking a shot for that or whatever his aspirations are, because we are so supportive of Adam London. If the vote does come down that Al is our new county commissioner, I want to congratulate him because he was in this interview, and it's like watching a race and you see somebody win by a nose or a head, and it's like there's really no losers in this. I hope that all of the candidates learned as much as we did in this interview. And that's what's great when you have three people that are qualified to be an administrator. You get a chance to learn, and I'll finish it again with saying thank you so much to our search committee. Job well done.
Any other questions or comments today? I'll reserve mine for miscellaneous. Please take the roll.
On Resolution 61 of today's dates, Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Antor,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck,
Yes.
Commissioner Ponstein,
Yes.
Burrow,
Yes.
Coleman, Breavy,
Yes.
Thiel,
Yes.
Sparks,
Yes.
McLeod, Hennessy,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Bukowski, Womack,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The resolution passes.
Thank you. We are on to item I could go do cartwheels right now after this process. I'm sure Charlie feels the same, and the candidates. We are on to item 9 of our agenda for public comment related to any general county matter. Do we have any public comment today? Oh, boy. Here we go.
Couldn't sit here for 5 hours and resist not coming up to the microphone.
Mr. Moore,
Sam
state your
Moore,
name and
Sam
address.
Moore, 960 Oakley. I just wanted to take a quick moment on behalf of the search committee. It was a pleasure to do that and to hopefully bring you a group of candidates that had very different backgrounds, different strengths, weaknesses. It was tough to whittle them down, and I wanted to thank the board for unanimous support in advancing a candidate. I think that's important to be unified for the future. But I also want to take a moment and also thank the staff that worked really hard. It was a challenging group, the 7 of us, and working since October, and as coming out of COVID and trying to get the process right. And the search committee, Korn Ferry, thank you very much. So I look forward. I think Kent County has a really bright future, and I think that it's a very exciting time to be a part of this group and the commission, to be associated with the county and from the parks perspective, but I think also our stakeholders. I think we're going to see some real energy moving forward together, expanded communication opportunities, and I really am enjoying watching the relief of Carol, Mandy, and Stan up here, that we don't have to go back and start over. So thank you very much, and look forward to continuing our work together.
Thank you, Sam. Any other public comment today? Lori, do we have anything in the inbox? You do not. Okay, we're going to go on to Commissioner official reports. Do we have any official reports today? Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I will be attending the West Michigan Sports Commission Meyer Summer Games event at the ballpark, the Meyer Sports Complex in Rockford. If anyone's interested in attending, please get a hold of Natalie Rose. The program begins at 7:30 with an 8:30 end. It's very moving to watch the athletes come out and participate in this. It's definitely worth your time. Thanks.
Any other official reports today from committees, commissions? All right, we're on to miscellaneous. Do I have Commissioner Miscellaneous today? Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Given the fact that we have a few more days remaining in June, I just at least wanted to recognize that we are in the middle or we're towards the end of Pride Month in 2021, and wanted to wish our friends and neighbors in the LGBTQ plus community a happy Pride Month for these remaining days, as we recognize the contributions LGBTQ plus people have made in this county and across our country, and the role they have played in fulfilling our nation's promise as a country where all are created equal in the eyes of the law. And just wish a happy remaining Pride. Thank you.
Great. Any other miscellaneous today? Ponstein, sorry. Commissioner Ponstein.
And then, in case Commissioner Morgan's still listening, there were 2 bond proposals up today. I didn't comment on one of them, so maybe I changed a little bit. I've got just 3, 4 real brief things. It's been a while since we've met in public. A couple months ago, Littlefoot Coffee Roasters, which is located in the city of Granville, earned the 2021 Entrepreneurial Year Award from the MSU Product Center, so I just want to give a shout out to them. It's been a busy day at my other job all week. We've got visitors from the corporate office in Washington State, and hopefully they're not just here to see how well our stores run, but just what a unique place West Michigan is, and maybe newer locations will be on the horizon. The other thing, county commissioners get a lot of different calls, and I think over the past couple months, I've had a lot of really different calls. I just want to thank the staff. A lot of times when we get these calls, the person on the phone's emotional or has got a real serious problem. I just want to give a shout out to the health department and the sheriff's department that helped on 2 of those calls, and I think resolved them in a very positive and forward-looking way. So I just want to give a shout out to those 2. I also want to thank Sam Moore and the Parks Foundation for reaching out to me about the concern that I received about the anniversary, and I've been told that Sam will meet with the family to find kind of a way to include the original park superintendent as part of this celebration too. And then lastly, I want to congratulation to the members of the pension board. I can't say I made a bet, but I made a promise that if they ever reached $1 billion, I would make everyone a steak dinner. That's tonight.
Yeah.
So
I heard the word everyone.
well, it's past, current, and former. So
Oh.
so there's a few that are going to be attending there. They reached the billion mark on 12/23 of 2020, and that's you can argue whether pensions are good, bad, versus just traditional plans, but as a member of that board, I try to make sure that it's not a liability to taxpayers. It's a benefit that will be there for the employees that are relying on it, and there was a lot of people that set those wheels in motion long before I got there, and hopefully that it continues long after I'm not there. So congratulations to them, and I'll see, I think Lindsay, maybe Morgan. I
Yeah,
don't
she
know.
was bragging about it, so,
So,
yeah. Yeah,
so
we heard
just
all about it.
Shout out to the staff that oversees that too. They do an outstanding job. Being part of the associations, the Michigan Association of Counties and the National Association, I hear a lot of horror stories about pensions and some of the boards, and then I get a lot of strange looks when I can look at them and say, we've got a fully funded pension plan, and it's donated by the employees and the employers. So we got something to be proud of, and we got great staff that monitor that. So thanks to Michelle Balcom and the staff that run that. So thank you.
Any other miscellaneous today before we wrap up? All right, here I go. I want to obviously first acknowledge our search committee, Stan, Carol, Birgit, Mike, Dante, Sam. The weight of the county is on you when you hear that your administrator's done and you really don't know what's gonna happen next. And, what an incredible group of people who have been through these before. They understand the community. They give their time. I mean, they're busy people with very successful careers and volunteered their time for this effort and for this county because they love our community and they want us to succeed so badly. So I just really want to acknowledge that. Carol, thank you for being almost like my political mother, because my own mother hates to hear about all this stuff. So Carol would take those calls when I needed to vent. Birgit, Mike, Dante, Sam's heard it and heard it and heard it. So just so appreciative. Steck, you're like my second brain and a better brain. And so I just am so blessed and so thankful to that committee. I really want to acknowledge the staff, honest to God, over and above COVID. This county staff stepped up so quickly and had to drop everything. Amy and her team, Danielle, Lori, Stephanie, Tracy, Linda. I don't think I've interacted more with you in a more intense, short time frame, and they just came through. And just want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge Amy LaFaber at Truscott. Did an incredible job. Obviously, Charlie. I think Charlie was ready to wring my neck a couple of times when I asked for more candidates several times. Want to acknowledge Mayor Bliss for talking me through some of this, and I also want to acknowledge my husband, who listens to it all on a nightly basis. So with that, I'm very excited to have Al come on board. We had amazing candidates. I remember sitting in the first round thinking, how are we going to narrow this down? I mean, and I also, made a commitment to this board that this board would make the decision. I think the search committee really wanted to make the decision. There was a glimmer of a moment where I didn't know if we would get there, so I thought about having them make a recommendation, but it was important that this board had buy-in to our new leader, and I think it's important that you all spent the last 4 or 5 hours today and beyond last night and all the time. So with that, I will call on Commissioner Womack for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, subject to the call of the chair to Thursday, July 22nd, 2021 at 5 p.m. for an official meeting.
Moved by Commissioner Womack, support by Commissioner Sparks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I am Kent County. I am Kent County.
I am Kent County.
We are 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 Kent County.
Bayard, Kent County. Army, Kent County.
Somos Kent County.
Mas Ira, Kent County.
We are Kent County. We are Kent County. We are Kent County. Oh, yeah.